Council together for 7 o'clock on April 1st, 2024. That's no joke. All council members are present. First item of business is the Pledge of Allegiance. Would you please join me? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, next up is public comments. Public comments is an opportunity for town residents and other interested individuals to speak about items not on tonight's agenda. This comment period is limited to 30 minutes total time, with each individual allowed for a maximum of 3 minutes to speak. And if we go over that time, we will pick up at the end. I have the sign-up sheet, and I don't have anyone signed up, but is there anyone in the public wishing to make public comment on items not on tonight's agenda? Seeing none, we'll move on to reports, items, and comments from the mayor and council. I'll start to my immediate right, Councilmember Hendricks.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Recently, I attended the swearing in of Parker Police Officer Rocha, which was always a great time to see new officers join our wonderful town. That's it. Thanks.
Councilmember Barrington.
Yeah, I also attended the swearing in, and my Douglas County Housing Partnership board meeting was canceled because we didn't have a quorum. So it's kind of a slower week.
Councilmember Rivera.
Thank you. On Thursday, the 21st, I chaired the Cherry Creek Basin Water Quality Authority, doing good work on stormwater in the reservoir's behalf. And then on Friday, the 22nd, proudly a member of the CML, Colorado Municipal League Executive Board. And we met to discuss the ongoing legislative session that we are going through and the abundance of bills that we have. The bills are starting to make their way across the hall. And so I testified in House committee hearings last few weeks. And so starting this week, I will be back down at the Capitol to testify on behalf of the town of Parker on our position on some more bills, or some other bills in both rooms. And then on Friday, I had the honor of meeting with the Chamber of Commerce board at our annual meet and greet. We talked to the new members, talked to the new president, and hang out on a very loose, well, let's be honest, it's at a bar. And we get to know them and just talk about the condition of our town and have a great time, and some incredible business owners.
Excellent. Councilmember Dyak.
Thank you. On the 20th at Dr. Cog, Denver Regional Council of Governments, we put the finishing touches on the board retreat agenda, which is April 26th and 27th. We had a presentation regarding Colorado's freight plan from CDOT. Lots of questions, specifically from the northern tier Adams County municipalities. We also had community-based transportation planning and project recommendations. Nothing Parker related on that one. Talked about legislative bills relative to Dr. Cog, Area Agency on Aging, planning, as well as transportation. And I've been on the phone and trying to put the finishing touches, if you will. If an elected person has the capacity to do that, staff does a lot of this work, but the executive director interviews for E47 are going to be held April 5th. So we're getting ready to interview 3 candidates and hopefully find a preferred candidate for us to engage. That is all.
Councilmember Wilkes.
Yeah, so I missed our last one, so I actually have quite a bit to update on. So on the 7th, I was at the Belco Instro Ranch ribbon cutting, which was wonderful to get to see them revitalize that building and turn it into something beautiful. And then I went to Washington, D.C. for the National League of Cities. I was appointed to serve on their Public Safety and Crime Prevention Federal Advocacy Committee. So we spent the week in D.C. Basically lobbying with our congressmen and our senators, talking about key things, me specifically here with what affects our town and what affects Colorado. So working on some changes for that. I had the Douglas County Youth Initiative board meeting where we are working on the nominations for the youth awards. And then I also was at the police swearing-in ceremony for Officer Rocha. Hopefully I said that right, Chief Rocha? And then I met with a Denver City Council member who heard what I did up in D.C. and wanted to essentially mastermind and see what we could do, what we're doing right here in our town, and what they could take back to them. Obviously, Denver has different wards, and so this was from Ward 5, and I'm excited to start some collaboration there and see if we can start helping our Denver city become as awesome and safe as Parker is, but that's a stretch, so we'll get there. I attended the Dr. Kaboom show with my kids at the Pace Center, which was really fun and really amazing. So if you guys haven't seen a show at the Pace Center, I highly recommend that. And then I was also at the Chamber Board of Directors networking event at the bar where I drink water. And I went to Cherokee Trail Elementary School and was privileged enough to get to read to all 4 kindergarten classes there, a wonderful book, and play with the kids for a few minutes and answer questions that have absolutely nothing to do with our town, but they were excited about it. So overall, it's been a pretty productive last couple weeks.
Councilmember Hefta.
Yes, I attended the Douglas County Homeless Initiative live town hall. That if you're interested in watching, it went for about an hour and a half, and you can go ahead and search for this on Homeless Initiative Report to the Community or Douglas County Homeless Initiative Live Town Hall 2024. All the commissioners were there, and the Douglas County Homeless Initiative executive team was there. They talked about reclaiming public spaces, economic development, enforcement with compassion, and getting resources to the folks they come in contact with through the HEART team. They also addressed, in addition, the illegal migrant or legal migrant situation that is up in Denver as well. So the commissioners were mostly answering the questions along with other members of the team. It's a very informative hour and a half live town hall on YouTube if you'd like to watch it.
Great, thank you all very much. Next up is consent agenda. Consent agenda items are considered to be routine and will be enacted by one motion and one vote. There'll be no separate discussion for the consent agenda items unless council votes to remove an item for individual discussion. Ordinances on the consent agenda are for introduction only and will not be removed. So council, you have items 4A through 4F for your consideration.
I move to approve consent agenda items 4A through 4F, please.
I'll second.
Motion is made by Rivera, seconded by Hendricks. Rivera?
Aye.
Barrington?
Yes.
Hendricks?
Yes.
Dyak?
Yes.
Wilkes? Hefta? And that passes 6-0. Next up is our public hearing. The public hearing is on Looking Glass Filing 20, Sketch and Preliminary Plan. There's been a request to move that to a date certain of April 15th, so I'll entertain a motion for that.
Sorry. Apologies. I move to continue the public hearing for Looking Glass Segment 2A, Filing 20, Sketch and Preliminary Plan, to a date certain of April 15th, 2024, please.
Second.
Motion is made by Rivera, seconded by Hefta. Rivera?
Aye.
Barrington?
Yes.
Hendricks?
Yes.
Dyak?
Yes.
Wilkes? Hefta?
Yes.
And that passes 6-0. First up is our ordinance number 8.20.6 on second reading, a bill for an ordinance to amend Chapter 4.07 of the Parker Municipal Code concerning development excise tax. Assistant Town Attorney, Mr. Maloney. Welcome, sir.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. This is something we've been talking about for quite a while. It's also included a study session. But by way of summary, Chapter 4.07 of the Parker Municipal Code establishes a one-time development excise tax on all new residential and commercial development. The revenue generated by the excise tax is restricted to capital improvements such as streets, capital equipment, facilities, and those facilities would include streets. Those capital facilities would include recreation, law enforcement, and administrative purposes, and also the repayment of debt associated with those capital improvement obligations. Chapter 4.07 was established in 2020 to create a credit against the residential development portion of the excise tax to incentivize the construction of certain regional recreational facilities before any residential dwelling units were occupied by new residents within a defined planned development area. Chapter 4.07 currently requires the taxpayer to delay the construction of residential dwelling units until after the construction and acceptance of a regional recreational facility by the town. and that is if the taxpayer wants to take advantage or qualify for the credit. The proposed amendment that's in your packet this evening provides more flexibility for the taxpayer by allowing the taxpayer to obtain building permits and to construct residential dwelling units while the regional recreational facility is being constructed, but this is provided that no certificates of occupancy are issued for any residential dwelling unit within a defined planned development area until the recreational facility is constructed and accepted by the town. Under the proposed amendment that is before you tonight, the taxpayer, and this would be as a first step, is required to apply for the credit with the finance director, and the application has to include the following 4 items. The application must describe the regional recreational facility to be constructed, the estimated cost of the regional recreational facility, the defined planned development area that's going to be subject to the credit, and the total number of dwelling units within the defined planned development area. From this information, the finance director will determine if the application meets the requirements for an excise tax credit. Following the construction of the regional recreational facility and probationary acceptance by the town, the taxpayer, as a second step, will, and again, this is going to be to the finance director, submit documentation sufficient to permit the finance director to determine the total amount of the credit and the amount of the credit to be prorated among the total number of dwelling units within the defined planned development area. The finance director will not approve the credit unless the following requirements are satisfied. The regional recreational facility has been constructed. The taxpayer received probationary acceptance from the town for the construction of the regional recreational facility. The regional recreational facility is available for use by new residents, and, most importantly, no certificates of occupancy were issued to the taxpayer for any residential dwelling unit within the planned development area that is the subject of the application approved by the finance director. The bottom line is you're providing an incentive, and that incentive is that we want the regional recreational facility to be constructed before a defined planned development area has any residents. If any certificates of occupancies are issued to the taxpayer for any residential dwelling unit before these requirements are satisfied, the finance director will deny the claim in its entirety. Any questions, Mayor, Council?
Let's go staff questions. Councilmember Dyke, you want to start off with any?
No, I don't really have any questions, but just, in terms of excise tax, maybe just a little high-level, thought on what an excise tax is and what those funds are used for and how they're generated.
So an excise tax, like any tax, has to be approved by a vote of the people. In this particular case, the excise tax was approved. The excise tax is a one-time tax that is paid with development. We have one set of taxes for residential and one set of taxes for commercial. The commercial rate is much lower than the residential. That money is collected, and that money is used for the restricted purposes identified in the ordinance itself. That includes basically capital improvements, roads, streets, bridges, facilities such as a new police facility, but it has to be a capital improvement. It's not used for salaries.
Thank you.
Councilmember Wilkes?
So the reason we're doing this is so that when we have a new community development, the things that draw people to that development, like their rec area and like their outdoor areas, are completed. That way residents, as soon as they move in, get to enjoy the reasons for living in that neighborhood. Have we had issues with this in the past where we have had developments that haven't completed their agreed upon rec space?
I'm not sure your mic's on.
Cool. Did you hear me?
I did hear you.
Okay. Can you hear me now? Better?
Did the record
Okay.
hear?
Yeah, did the record hear me, or do I need to repeat that? Okay, cool. I am kind of loud.
So as indicated, this excise tax, at least the new format was approved in 2020. It was actually a 2019 election. We had received our first application for a credit, and going through that process, we identified what we thought were deficiencies with the ordinance. One for the taxpayer and a deficiency for the town. So working with the legal counsel on this particular issue, what we tried to create was a situation where a builder or developer could build simultaneously the regional recreational facility along with the infrastructure and the residential units, doing it at the same time, provided that no certificates of occupancy would be issued until that regional recreational facility was constructed and accepted by the town. So this is really our first application, and so we learned some valuable lessons, and as a result, we're suggesting that you consider the amendment that's in your packet this evening.
Thank you.
Councilmember Hefta?
Thank you, Mr. Maloney. And so if there is any dispute from the developer on this to the finance director, how does that work itself out?
So there is an appeal process that's actually built into the code, and so the taxpayer could file an appeal to any decision by the finance director. The appeal would go to your town manager.
Councilmember Hendricks?
No questions, thank you.
Councilmember Barrington?
I think all my questions were asked by other council members. Thank you.
Councilmember Rivera?
Thank you. A pretty simple question. Could you tell me the difference between a regional recreational facility versus a neighborhood recreational facility and the benefit to the citizens as a whole?
Sure. A regional recreational facility is a facility that is going to be ultimately owned and maintained by the town, as opposed to the other type, the smaller facility, which would be owned and maintained either by the developer, the HOA, or Metropolitan District, at least under your current rules.
So, for example, I live in Idlewild, and we have a park up there that was built by the builder, but then the assets were handed over to the citizens of Parker as a whole. So a benefit to the community as a whole, and thus a regional recreational facility is a benefit to the citizens, not just to a neighborhood, and thus the tax credit, if you will, is to benefit the community as a whole, an investment in the community.
That's correct, and we're also incentivizing the timing to get the facility in place before the residents are occupying a development. I guess another distinction, a regional facility, at least in terms of a park, has to be at least 10 acres or more. And then if it's a trail, it has to be part of our regional trail system, and that's the wider trail, 10 feet in width, that you see, for example, along Cherry Creek. So it could also be a recreational facility, soccer fields, baseball fields, again, something that's larger and of a benefit to all the residents of the town, and again, something the town would own and maintain.
So thank you for the clarity. And so a little neighborhood pocket park inside of a neighborhood in hidden streets and cul-de-sacs is not eligible for this. This is a neighborhood park or a regional park that is benefit to the entire citizens of Parker.
Correct. And also internal trails to a development would also be privately owned and not part of the regional concept.
Thank you, sir.
Great. All right, with that, we're going to open this up for public comment at 7:18. Anyone from the public wishing to make comment on ordinance number 8.20.6 on second reading? Seeing none, we'll close it at 7:18, and we'll bring it back to the council for any final comments in that reverse order. So, Councilmember Rivera, you're up.
Thank you. I think that this is an example of legislation that was created to benefit the citizens as a whole. I mean, we went after growth pays for growth, and in doing so, we demand that it benefits our community. When we put this task in front of the development community, they said, "Well, hold on. We want to help, but we need you to work on this." And then at the same time, there was some work done that we didn't catch in the original writing of this bill and then law. And this cleans that up and allows us to benefit the citizens as a whole. I am in support.
Councilmember Barrington?
I am also very supportive of this. Thank you.
Councilmember Hendricks?
Yes, this makes sense to me, so I'm in support.
Councilmember Dyak?
I appreciate the time and energy that staff put forth on this issue. I have no issues with this. Thank you.
Councilmember Wilks?
Yeah, I think anytime we can add more outdoor space and more recreation to the town and not just have it be specific to a community, it just benefits everybody in the town. So if this is the way that we can do it and work with the developers to do it to get it done quickly, then I'm in support.
Councilmember Hefta?
Yeah, developers sometimes go bankrupt. This is a great incentive for them to be able to get the project done for the community. I'm in support.
Great. With that, I'll entertain a motion on ordinance number 8.20.6.
I move to, oh, go ahead.
Nope. Good.
Move to approve resolution number, actually, I lost it, so go.
Okay. I move to approve ordinance number 8.20.6 on second reading.
I'll second.
Motion is made by Hendricks, seconded by Wilks. Rivera?
Aye.
Barrington?
Yes.
Hendricks?
Yes.
Dyak?
Yes.
Wilks?
Aye.
Hefta?
Yes.
And that passes 6-0. With that, I'm going to turn the meeting over to Mayor Pro Tem Dyak. There's your. And then
See, Todd, that's what happens when your screen times out, and then you're like,
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. The next item before I read it into the record, I have a narrative to read into the record. During the February 5th, 2024 Town Council meeting, the Town Council voted that Mayor Jeff Toburg has a conflict of interest and is disqualified from participating in any manner before Town Council concerning the Citizens Initiative to amend the town's sales tax code to exempt food for home consumption, period products, and incontinence products and diapers. The item on tonight's meeting agenda titled Resolution Number 24-028, a resolution to address the financial impact to the town if the purchase of food for home consumption is exempt from the state's sales tax, is within the scope of its disqualification. As a result, Mayor Toburg will not be participating in this agenda item, and he has left the council chambers. So with that, I'd like to read in the resolution. Resolution number 24-028, a resolution to address the financial impact to the town if the purchase of food for home consumption is exempt from the town's sales tax. Mr. Maloney.
Are we ready to go? So the agenda is on the screen this evening, and so we are going to, as a staff, give you a brief background concerning the resolution that's in your packet this evening. We're going to review the content of the resolution in your packet titled A Resolution to Address the Financial Impact to the Town if the purchase of food for home consumption is exempt from the town sales tax. And then after you hear from the staff in terms of our presentation and the public comment, then we're going to look for council to have a discussion and determine whether council desires to adopt the ordinance that's in your packet this evening. So in terms of background, the resolution in your packet was prepared by town staff in response to the ordinance being proposed by the petitioning committee called Parker Citizens for Fair Taxes. The purpose of the proposed ordinance is to establish 3 separate exemptions to the sales taxes collected by the town, specifically exempting the sale of food for home consumption, menstrual products, and diapers from the town sales tax. The resolution, however, only addresses food for home consumption. During this presentation, staff and I will refer to the exemption for food for home consumption as grocery tax or tax on groceries. The resolution was prepared for consideration by town council because state law allows the governing body of a municipality, here the town council, to, quote, pass a resolution or take a position of advocacy concerning the proposed ordinance. The resolution that's in your packet this evening does not take a position of advocacy, and this was based upon specific requests by the town council at the March 25th, 2024 study session, and directs that the factual information contained in the resolution, assuming that it is passed by town council tonight, is shared with the residents of the town. So if you go to the resolution itself, there are several recitals in that resolution, I believe 12, and we're going to talk about each of the recitals. And so on the PowerPoint, all you're going to see is the recital, and then with each recital, we're going to discuss in a very brief manner the content under that particular recital. So the first recital in the resolution states, there's currently a petition being circulated in the town of Parker to significantly cut the town sales tax by eliminating the sales tax on food purchased for home consumption. This recital, and again, if you take a look at what's in your packet, provides the background related to the petition that is being circulated for the proposed ordinance. If the committee submits sufficient signatures, and that's 6,820, to the town clerk by July 1st of this year, the proposed ordinance will appear on the November 5th general election. If the committee submits sufficient signatures after July 1st of this year, but before the August 12th deadline, the town will be required to hold a special election after the November election. The cost of the special election is approximately $69,000, assuming Douglas County provides support to the town. If the county does not provide support to the town, that cost could increase significantly. The second recital in the resolution states, in 1981, landowners voted to incorporate the town of Parker and voted to tax themselves to provide services that are not being adequately provided by Douglas County, including law enforcement, roads, parks, open space, trails, and basic municipal services. This recital provides the background related to the incorporation of the town in 1981 for the purpose of providing basic services which were not being provided by Douglas County, and the decision of the original elected officials to adopt a sales tax, which included the grocery tax specifically in the body of the adopting ordinance, to raise the revenue to pay for these services. So, in 1981, the town citizens approved a 1% sales tax, which explicitly included the grocery tax. In 1982, the town citizens approved an additional 1.5% sales tax, specifically to fund a police department and a municipal court, which explicitly included the grocery tax. In 1990, the town citizens approved an additional half-cent sales tax to be used exclusively. When I say exclusively, the use of this money is restricted to parks and recreation. This also included the grocery tax. Since 1990, the town has collected a combined 3% sales tax, which includes the grocery tax. The third recital that is contained in the resolution states, the town's 3% sales tax, which includes the tax on groceries, is paid by both residents as well as non-residents. The benefit of using a sales tax as opposed to a property tax to pay for town services is that non-residents pay a significant amount of the sales tax. So later in this presentation, Rhonda is going to walk you through what that percentage is today. Grocery stores in Parker draw business not only from town residents, but also from non-residents, including unincorporated Douglas County, Arapahoe County, Aurora, Elizabeth, Franktown, Lone Tree, Castle Rock, and the surrounding area. And before Weldy gets into the trade area, the one thing that you need to keep in mind is that when Parker was originally incorporated in 1981, there was another municipality for miles. It was an entity unto itself, and it was surrounded by non-residents for miles. And so the original town council decided they wanted to specifically include a tax on groceries because people had to come to Parker to buy their groceries. It makes logical sense. And then also the point is, what other tax exists out there that can support town services, half of which is paid for by non-residents? And again, Rhonda will get into that detail later. Well, do you want to talk about the trade area quickly?
Yeah, so attached in Exhibit A is a trade area map. So the trade area would be generally classified as where people are coming from to shop in Parker. The trade area population is estimated to be about 188,000. This is a map we've used for a very long time in economic development and adjust the boundaries as needed if stores open or close. $188,000 is a conservative number after we dug into the grocery taxes, specifically with regional draws like Trader Joe's and Costco. They have a much larger reach. So conservatively, we put in 50% in section 3E of 50% Parker residents and 50% non-residents shopping and buying groceries in Parker. It could be higher, but 50% was the conservative viewpoint on that, because it really depends which store, as most of our stores sit along our border and have different draws from people from the county and outside from other counties.
So following up on that, recital number 3 concludes that the elimination of the grocery tax will result in a loss of a major source of tax revenue from non-residents who shop in Parker, and a corresponding increase in the cost of services to town residents. That's assuming that there's no replacement revenue. Or in the alternative, a significant reduction in services provided by the town. I think we're going to be on to recital number 4.
Section 4, the majority of the revenue collected by the town to pay for town services comes from 2.5% of the 3% sales tax collected by the town. Because the revenue generated by 0.5% of the sales tax is restricted by charter to the Park and Recreation Fund. The amount of the 3% sales tax collected in 2023 was $67 million. $55.8 million was general fund sales tax, which is 70% of the general fund revenue. $11.2 million was paid into the Park and Recreation Fund, and that was all sales tax collected in 2023.
All right. Good evening, Council, and on to the 5th recital. Section titled The Revenue from the 2.5% Sales Tax, which includes the tax on groceries used to pay for town services, which includes the services described here in this section. It's a rather lengthy section that we'll get into here in just a moment, but we have added a few pie graphs here to provide some context coming from the study session to give an idea of scale and what we're looking at for the grocery tax relative to the general fund and then relative to all funds town-wide. So what you see here in chart number 1 is you'll see the food in the light blue slice there in kind of the bottom left corner. You'll see the grocery tax called out there, $11 million, and not sure if that's, I don't know. My apologies if it was. You'll see the grocery tax called out there as a percentage of the, this is for 2023, this is not for 2024. These are actual revenues received by the town last year. We received a little over $80 million in general fund revenue. You'll see grocery tax accounting for 14% of that, $11 million there. And you'll see the size of the slice for grocery tax relative to sales tax here in the green, and then relative to all the other revenues received by the general fund last year. And again, the general fund pays for what many of us considered key town services, the police, public works, snow plowing, that sort of thing. Almost, it's an imperfect metaphor, but almost like our checking account where most of our day-to-day operations are paid from. And so you see, this is the revenue for the general fund. Similarly, this is the other side of the coin. This is the general fund expenditures. We show this to give you an idea of what all the general fund revenue pays for, including the grocery tax. These are functions. We break them out by department. You won't see grocery tax on here per se, but grocery tax is diffused through each one of these departments and pays for their operations. And so these would be the functions that stand to be impacted if the grocery tax were to go away. Again, these are your general fund expenditures. Now, we're kind of stepping up to the town-wide level. There's been a little bit of ambiguity, I think, out there about what is the town's actual budget, and there's many different funds within the town. I don't know exactly how many, but probably close to 24, probably. general fund being the one that's most visible. And so this is going to be the revenues received by the town for all sorts of funds, not only the general fund, but our Parks and Rec fund, our stormwater fund, our various capital funds. And so there's a number of different revenues that go into this, and you will see the grocery tax there again. I think we have it there. It's in the light blue. It's kind of hard to tell with the leader lines are kind of invisible there. But grocery tax at the town-wide level impacts not only the general fund, but also our Parks and Recreation Fund, because we, of course, have 2.5% of the grocery tax, sales tax goes to the general fund, another 0.5% goes to our Parks and Recreation Fund. This that you have before you is the town-wide impact of grocery tax relative to every other revenue across the entire town. And you'll see whereas the general fund revenue is about $80 million, town-wide, we're looking at twice that, excluding transfers, for the town last year. So there's we call them different pots of money, different colors of money, as some of you are fond of saying. And so certain funds within the town can be used for certain things. They're not entirely fungible, these revenues between different funds. A lot of them are restricted by law, some of them by our own policies, and we can't necessarily apply $1 in this fund over here in this fund. And even if we do that, it requires council approval in order to do so. And following the theme of expenditures following revenue, this is what it looks like townwide for all of our expenditures, what all the services that our residents and businesses enjoy throughout the community, broken down by department and function in some cases once again. A lot of these correspond with their own funds, like our cultural fund is primarily an internal service fund funded by people purchasing admission to events and going to classes, as an example. So we wanted to provide this for you to answer the question, well, what is the town's budget? How much is the grocery tax as a percentage of the town's budget? We hope this does that to some extent. All right. So, and this is moving on to some additional slides before I get too much further down into the resolution. This is going to be a summary of a lot of what you'll find in recital 5. I won't read through it word for word. We'll be here for quite a while. But what you'll see on the next couple slides is a list of town services that are either directly funded through the general fund or are heavily supported by general fund funded departments and functions. And so even though grocery tax is primarily in the general fund, you'll find that it indirectly benefits, serves, functions in almost every different fund. So that could be townwide, just townwide general pieces that we do every day. Of course, public safety is probably the most visible piece of what the general fund does each day. A lot of our police officers, but also animal control and also our building inspection. Our transportation, of course, our public works team, who does such a great job for us, maintaining, operating, and designing roads, snow plowing, street sweeping, and traffic ops and whatnot. Our community development, who makes sure our plans are laid out correctly and that they are observed. Our Parks and Rec is a little bit more complicated. A lot of the parks maintenance day-to-day is funded out of the general fund. Recreation is largely funded through fees collected by folks using our recreational facilities. And then cultural is largely, again, like parks or recreation, funded through fees collected by folks participating, but also receive some support from the general fund. And we do, of course, have lots of community events that are supported by the general fund that a lot of our folks in this room are familiar with. Our youth initiatives, as folks here behind us can attest, we are quite active with those. We also support 5 different nonprofits throughout the town. Our communications and administration and economic development folks support the rest of the functions that I just went through here. So, going, wow, I got all the really fun slides. Going back through section 5, you will find that each different section that I talked about there is supported, makes up a different percentage of our general fund. 34.2% of the general fund was spent on public safety in 2023, 24.9% on public works, 18% was spent on what we call general government, which includes the town manager's office, our community events, our municipal court, our finance department, our IT division, our HR department, and then our parks, forestry, and open space, which maintains the parks. Another 4.7% of general fund was spent on debt service, 2.7% transferred to the cultural fund, 2.4% spent on community development activities, and 1.3% for economic development. And for some town-wide context, town services are provided by 329 full-time employees, FTE, 606 part-time employees, and 1,495 volunteers. And so the idea of recital 5 here is to give you an idea of what would be impacted should the grocery tax be rescinded. We'll go through one more time. All right. So I will continue on with section 6 here. This is a bit of a subsection talking about the other part of the sales tax, not the 2.5 that goes to the general fund, but the 0.5% that goes to our Parks and Recreation Fund can be used for far fewer things than can the general fund piece. It is used to fund parks and recreation and open space projects, including capital projects and land acquisitions through the Parks and Rec Fund as mentioned. In Exhibit C here, we have a list of the myriad of projects, I counted 56, that had been funded through the 0.5% sales tax since its inception in 1990. I definitely will not read through all of these, but again, to give you an idea of the impact of the tax since it started almost 35 years ago. So Exhibit D to follow are Parks and Rec projects funded through this 0.5% sales tax in process or planned for the future. You'll see we have about 8 of those currently in the works, and quite a few actually scheduled for after 2024 with that same revenue stream. So again, for additional context of what this money is used for, the Parks, Recreation, and Open Space Department and related personnel manage 398 acres of town-owned parkland, 41 miles of trails, 14 parks, and 1,144 acres of open space. Personnel for the department also oversee 4 recreation facilities, including the Park and Rec Center, the Field House, and they also coordinate a full range of adult and youth activities, including aquatics classes, enrichment education classes, fitness, wellness, sports, therapeutic recreation, and special events. Our parks, forestry, and open space folks also do activities, including purchase of parkland, open space, and construction, and permanent improvements for parks, ball fields, and trails throughout the town, as well as taking care of our rec facilities. So we do put it to good use and program every penny of it quite carefully. There's more.
Recital 7, the elimination of the tax on groceries or the tax cut will result in a permanent loss of revenue for town services and the Park and Recreation Fund. Exhibit E1 in the ordinance this is a summary of what is in Exhibit E1. When the sales tax team was tasked with calculating what the impact of what this initiative would be, they analyzed over 70 Parker retailers that sold food for home consumption. They looked at the sales tax returns from retailers such as Walmart, Costco, and King Soopers. The sales tax team analyzed 4 years of data from 2020 through 2023 to calculate a trend. I will explain the calculations on the next slide, line by line, using 2023 data. The information for the full calculation is included in the exhibit and the presentation. And I think I have the most fun slides here. Sorry. Yours are colorful, that's right. Row A, the total taxable sales in Parker for these retailers was $784.5 million in 2023. The total sales tax remitted by these retailers was $23.5 million. The team is fully aware that all of this tax is not derived from food for home consumption because the sales tax returns do not differentiate between cosmetics and a carton of eggs. Row B. Douglas County does not tax food for home consumption. This is the main difference in the tax base between Parker and Douglas County. Douglas County sends the sales tax return information for Parker retailers to the sales tax team. The sales tax team analyzed the returns for the same retailers that are presented in row A. The Douglas County taxable sales at these locations in 2023 was $345 million. Row C. The difference between the town of Parker and Douglas County sales tax returns for the retailers that were analyzed was $439.5 million. This is the portion of the sales at these retailers that is food for home consumption. Row D. The $439.5 million multiplied by the town's tax rate of 3% is $13.2 million. The total revenue generated from food for home consumption in 2023 was $13.2 million. I'm going to go through the general fund impact of this tax cut. Row E, the general funds portion, 2.5% multiplied by $439.5 million is $11 million. In 2023, the general fund sales tax collection was $55.8 million. As described in the pie charts, there are other revenue sources in the general fund. In 2023, all of the general fund's revenue was $79.5 million. Or $80 million. Food for home consumption was 19.7% of sales tax in 2023. This is dividing $11 million by the $55.8 million. Food for home consumption was 13.8% of total general fund revenue in 2023. This is a generational impact to a large portion of the town of Parker's revenue. To calculate this impact, the average of the last 3 years of data was used. The average of 2021 through 2023 tax on food is 19.1%, and the average total of the all general fund revenue was 13.6%. Another fun slide. This slide shows the impact in 2025, the range of 2026 through 2035, and the range from 2036 to 2050. The sales tax revenue trend was tapered down to 1% growth for this calculation. In 2025, the projected tax cut would be $11.7 million. 2026 through 2035 would be $143.3 million. 2036 through 2050 would be $279.3 million. The total estimated loss through 2050 is $434.3 million. This slide shows the impact for the tax cut for Parks and Recreation Fund. This is 0.5% of the $439.5 million, which was the food for home consumption calculation prepared by the sales tax team. $2.2 million was the portion that was Parks and Rec. This is 15.8% of the total revenue in the Parks and Recreation Fund. Future impacts of the Park and Recreation Fund in 2025 is estimated to be $2.3 million. The range of 2026 through 2035 is $28.6 million. 2036 through 2050 is $55.8 million. The total estimated impact through 2050 is $86.7 million. The tax cut will eliminate a significant revenue from non-residents who shop in the town and enjoy town amenities like recreation center trails, maintained roads, and security that the police department provides. The estimated loss of revenue from non-residents would be 50% of the tax cut as described by Weldy in the previous slide. Future impact of non-resident revenue, this is just taking the 3% and then dividing it by 2. 2025 it would be $7 million. 2026 through 2035 is $86 million. 2036 through 2050 is $167.5 million. Recital 8. The unplanned tax cut of the proposed ordinance does not include any replacement revenue for town services and the Park and Recreation Fund. The two primary continuing tax revenue for the town services and Park and Recreation is sales tax and property tax. Another fun slide. This slide is Exhibit F in the ordinance. Exhibit F is a listing of Colorado municipalities in order by population, largest to smallest. This chart shows the sales tax and property rates for these areas. Parker has one of the lowest rates in both sales tax and property tax when compared to municipalities with our similar population. If the tax cut were to pass and the lost revenue was to be replaced by sales tax, the tax rate would need to increase from 3% to 3.7%. The town's property tax mill levy is 2.602 mills. Property tax generated in 2023 was $2.7 million, or approximately $113 per single-family resident, valued at $650,000. I'm going to keep it on the park. I'll flip forward. This is the rest of the areas going down to areas with population down to 10,000. So you'll see some of our neighboring communities in there that have a lower population. I'm going to flip it back to Parker since that's what we're talking about. If the lost revenue was to be replaced by property tax, the mills would need to increase from 2.602 mills to 12.343 mills. This would increase the property tax for a $650,000 house from $133 annually to $537. This was calculated using the current certification values and applying a mill levy to fill the $13.2 million tax cut. Both of these tax increases would need to be voted on by Town of Parker citizens.
All right, and we'll dwell on a comparison on tax on groceries to our peers here just a little bit longer here in recital number 9. Going ahead to, actually should be Exhibit G now. My apologies for that. This is a summary of all municipalities in Colorado and which of them assess grocery tax, which of them do not, and how they are chartered or not according to Colorado state law. So according to the Colorado Department of Local Affairs, there are 273 municipalities in the state, 102 of which are home rule, and 171 of which are statutory towns or cities. The percentage of those municipalities that collect a tax on groceries is 64%, a total of 174 in all, I think 175. However, 75% of home rule municipalities like Parker collect a tax on groceries, and 57% of statutory cities and towns collect tax on groceries. In your packet, you'll find some detail going into this table, all those 273 municipalities. We have it summarized for you here. For a little bit additional context, statutory towns are those with a population of 2,000 folks or less. That'll explain a little bit of what that is. I won't spend too much time on that. Most municipalities that don't have a tax on groceries have higher taxes overall. For example, the city of Aurora, north of us, does not have a tax on groceries, but has a higher sales tax rate of 3.53% relative to our 3%, a separate tax of 8.75% on the sale of marijuana, an occupational privilege tax or a head tax, an emissions tax, and a property tax mill levy of 8.407 as compared to our 2.602. When compared to Parker, as I said, we have a 3% sales tax. We don't tax marijuana, which is prohibited in our town, and we have a relatively low 2.602 property tax mill. And then kind of taking a step back, looking again at that 0.5% sales tax. This is a restricted sales tax, once again. So we collect it on all things, but for the portion on groceries, like everything in the 0.5%, it can only be used to fund significant parks and rec projects throughout that particular fund. So again, it's been in effect since 1990. The town has collected over $135 million from that half-cent sales tax since 1990, which goes directly to the Parks and Rec Fund, cannot be used elsewhere. It's been used to fund parkland, other permanent parks and rec programs and facilities, operations and maintenance of parks and rec programs, and debt service on bonds and other debt obligations required to acquire land, open space, and construct park and rec facilities. To give you some idea of what those are, we had it on Exhibit D earlier, but the O'Brien Park Playground renovation, O'Brien Park Pool renovation, Corporal David Sanka Dog Park and Disc Golf Course, Discovery Ice Park and Ice Trail, the East-West Trail, and Jordan Road Undercrossing, High Plains Trail and Bridge, recreational pickleball courts at the trails at Crowfoot, and many more that you can find in earlier exhibits. Again, those would not be possible without that 0.5% sales tax.
And then Section 11 of the resolution talks about the town has offered financial incentives to attract and distribute grocery stores throughout the town and make them more accessible to town residents. So I'm just going to talk about that history briefly of how the town has utilized those programs. Starting initially in July 17, 1989, the town council adopted a program called Enhanced Sales Tax Initiative Program, or STIP. We like our acronyms. To attract new businesses to town by sharing back the sales tax that they were generating. And that included the tax on groceries, and they had to be used for public improvements at that time. That share back had to replace public improvement costs. On December 14th, 2009, the STIP program was replaced by Town Council by the Tax and Fee Assistance Program to be able to further diversify the types of businesses we were attracting to town as well as jobs. Similar program where it shared back the sales tax that was being generated by that business. Since both of these programs, the STIP and the TAP program, have been utilized to attract Costco, Super Target, King Supers, Cottonwood King Supers, as well as the Stroh Ranch King Supers. On February 5th of this year, Town Council agreed to do the Shopping Center Assistance Program, which is very similar to the TAP program, but requires more retail sales generating uses in the surrounding retail businesses that typically go around a grocery store with the developer of Whole Foods. Again, not with Whole Foods directly, but the developer who is putting all the money up to build the buildings and put in all the infrastructure. I want to note that those incentives were utilized for public improvements that they were granted for, mostly a very large regional stormwater channel that runs along that property, needing to be stabilized and reconfigured to make sure that area of town does not have any stormwater issues. Additionally, eliminating the grocery tax will have impact on our ability to attract additional grocers to town. There are several sites, a handful of sites in town that are kind of slated and could be a grocery anchored site to support some of the new housing development. Chambers and Hess being one of them. Chambers and Stroh might be one of them, as well as along Dransfeld where the new roadway connection is being constructed. Also, these do support our Parks and Rec department because their 0.5% of that is restricted cannot be given back to developers. So that is outside of any incentives or share backs. So it is only the 2.5% that will be shared back.
So the last recital is recital number 12, and it states that the purpose of the proposed ordinance is to provide tax relief. There are other alternatives to eliminating the tax on groceries. low-income households that are eligible for food assistance, such as the Federal Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, federal food stamp programs, are already exempt from paying the tax on groceries. The demographics of the town of Parker and the trade area that Weldy discussed earlier reveal that most of the taxes on groceries are paid by those that would not qualify as low income. And then finally, instead of eliminating tax on groceries, it may be more cost effective to target tax relief to low and moderate income households for rebates and similar mechanisms. So you've heard all of the recitals at this point, at least some of the background. If Town Council does move forward with this resolution, there are 3 sections at the end of the resolution, which are really the action sections. Section 1 states the Town Council hereby adopts the recitals contained in the resolution, again, which we have discussed in detail. Section 2, the Town Council reviewed the proposed ordinance and considered the impact on the town and its residents as described in the recitals. And then finally, Section 3, the Town Council hereby directs that the information contained in the recitals be shared with the residents of the town of Parker to the extent allowed by the applicable law. So that concludes our presentation at this point, and certainly open it up to any questions by Mayor Pro Tem or Town Council.
Thank you very much, everyone, for the presentation. Appreciate it. Councilmember Hendricks, questions?
Thank you, Pro Tem. Back. Lot to chew on. So for, I think, chart 3, the buckets of money we talked about in the past, I know there's been talk out there with surplus or carryovers and, different, I guess, could we dive a little more deep into that as far as, and we're talking about the general fund and operating revenue, and that revenue focuses on keeping the lights on, as it were. But I think there's some confusion out there in the public about the other stuff, and maybe you can dive a little deeper and how by law we can't touch these other buckets. They have specific purposes.
So we'll probably tag team that one. So yeah, there's a lot to be said for that to unpack, as you said. So there's several different categories of funds that any municipality will have. Everyone's got a general fund. Everyone's got one or several special revenue funds, and those are generally funds that get money from elsewhere besides just tax dollars. They may get some subsidy of some size from the general fund, but they have other significant revenue sources. We have enterprise funds, which largely are supposed to work like a business and fund themselves, really have not much in the way of subsidies. And so again, there's different colors of money, there's different legal restrictions depending on the type of fund that we're talking about. I don't know if you want to expand upon that, Rhonda.
Sure. Is this on? So this is a chart, the exhibit, which shows all of the fund revenues, and you'll see in here that sales tax is still a big portion of it, and same with the tax on grocery. And this is just the general fund. The general fund will be the most impacted by this tax cut. If you look at the big blue pie square in that pie, that is the piece that's the tax on grocery. So this would be the biggest impact. The other revenue does come in through here, and again, it is utilized for funding these departments, which are main town services, which is how the town runs the business.
And I've been talking to certain citizens, and this resolution is specifically for sales tax collected, which affects the general fund. They've brought up different scenarios, I guess, but we're focused on this only, the sales tax collected for operations.
The general fund, which has the 2.5% sales tax, is where the operations are. And then the 0.5% that's restricted 100% towards parks and recreation, that is being paid for. There are capital projects being paid out of that, which Michael showed the listing of all of our great parks and trails and all our plans to use for the future, which we've saved some money in the Parks and Recreation Fund for those purposes. Example would be Salisbury Park North. That is what the 0.5% tax is for. It's operations and capital for Parks and Recreation only.
Okay, and final question. I've seen some other numbers out there by the petition group, and I was just wondering, do we know where they're getting their math from? Like, has there been any kind of information shared? Like,
The only information I have that's shared to me is from Douglas County sales tax returns and our sales tax returns, and that is what the information that we have that we know is factual, and that's information that we use to analyze.
okay, thank you very much.
Councilmember Barrington.
Question for Weldy. What would you say is the number one requested retailer to come, or store to come to Parker?
So I have worked in economic development since 2012 for the town, and it was always Whole Foods, followed by Trader Joe's.
And so this could affect the, our ability to give Whole Foods any incentives to want to move forward with their project.
Correct. Their whole agreement was predicated on a grocery tax being able to reimburse a certain percentage that was allowed per code up to a dollar amount. It is capped on time, percentages we can share back to make up that $3.2 million in public improvements they're adding. I did have a conversation with the developer last week, letting him know about this resolution since he was the project specifically listed in there, and he was concerned about the financial impact that would have to keep the project going forward. Because, and I'm not quoting, but generally the project did not pencil before without this incentive. It's not going to pencil now as inflationary costs continue to rise. He was going to look at the financial aspect, but thought it was likely they would pause the project.
Well, let's let that sink in for a minute. But
I also do believe you got a public comment regarding the project in your packet.
so I guess this is, anybody could answer this, but is there a department or town-owned building or facility that would not be affected by this? Like our police department?
It is really hard to determine at this early stage what the depth of the impact would be, but as mentioned when we went through a list of all the town services, every department gets some level of direct or very strong indirect support from the grocery tax and all taxes. It will be something where we look over the summer and the spring, look at what the impact would be for having the grocery tax go away and then doing a normal conventional budget. But it's hard to imagine the full depth of the impact for this across all funds right now. It would be substantial.
Scary stuff, but thank you for your very thorough presentation.
Councilmember Rivera.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. I guess again for Weldy, real quick, just for edification, the shareback program, that is revenue generated by that business.
Correct.
And then shared back to them. That is not money coming from the citizens to that business. It is money that business generates by becoming part of our community, correct?
That is correct. There's also considered when we look at the numbers on what is eligible for shareback, we apply what is called a cannibalization rate. So we assume they're going to take some sales tax from a competitor per se. So it's not 100%. We do try and protect our existing sales tax base as well, so we're not impacting the general fund in a negative way.
And is it your opinion, coming out of the Great Recession, that the market changed and communities had to compete to attract retailers?
Yes.
Is that the common way things are done nowadays?
The pressure is less on competing, as especially this area of the metro has kind of filled in a little bit. Right now, the pressure is coming from the cost of construction, inflation, which is then passed on to tenants. Some of the numbers I'm hearing for new leasing of retail space is quite frightening, and I can't imagine how a business can support that.
So, and those costs include traffic lights, public improvements that.
Sidewalks, curbs, gutters.
Not the building, not the building.
Typically not the building. We will make certain aspects of the building eligible if it is going above and beyond what code requires.
The majority of those incentives go to public assets that would be
Correct.
handed over to the town to maintain in the future.
Correct. Or like the example of Cottonwood, King Soopers was unwilling to tear down the vacant shopping center unless incentives were brought to the table. I did confirm with the developer on that project last week that I was not misremembering that being the truth. It was, in fact, the truth. King Soopers wouldn't even have a conversation with us.
And now it's your opinion that the developer, KPS, may have to pull out of Parker if those incentives aren't there to help with the abhorrent costs of infrastructure currently.
Correct.
Thank you. Rhonda, please. So in my home, we have savings accounts and we have checking accounts. And to make this as simple as possible, I'm self-employed. So my wife and I put money into a fund that will pay our taxes come March 15th. And that money isn't touched because that money needs to be there to pay our funds. If I am looking to purchase a vehicle for my family, I put money into a fund to save for a down payment. Whereas I might finance the balance, I'm going to put money into a fund. That's a savings account. The day-to-day operations, whether it's my insurance and my groceries and all of those, come out of our checking account. Is that similar to, would you say, what we have when we have our funds versus what we have for our general fund?
Yes, that's very similar. You could also think of it as a retirement account. When you legally put money away, it's legally restricted unless you take it out. There's penalty and interest and all the fun things. Or you can also think of like the Section 125 college savings, where it's specifically used for the one purpose. So an example would be where Mr. Maloney discussed the excise tax earlier. That is 100% specifically only to be used for capital projects legally, because that is what was restricted by the vote of the people, and
No,
it was revoted on in 2020, but it was back from whenever it was initially put in.
That was perfect, because that was my next question. At my home, I'm not restricted. I can move funds. I can say, you know what, I can't afford a car this year. My insurance costs have gone up. I'm going to put a little bit more into my general fund. We can't do that. We are not the federal government, correct? We cannot print money. We have existing funds, and that is it.
We do not have a money tree, no. We do not grow money. We do not print money. The money that we have is the revenue that comes into the town, and majority of it's sales tax.
So back to the gross budget, if you will, I think the next slide. Funds in that budget, funds in those $164+ million, there are dollars. There's dollars coming from Douglas County. There's dollars coming from roads and bridges. There's dollars coming from the feds. There's dollars coming from CDOT, correct?
Correct. There's, like for an example, the miscellaneous and contribution section, $8 million came into that little chunk of the pie last year for the Dransfield Road extension from Douglas County. So we have agreements with counties, with our neighbors, with grant agreements, with very restricted by law when we get different tax revenue in. Everything is restricted for a purpose, and in order to make it so that we can bring the money in and spend the money out more concisely, different funds are created. We have the general fund, we have special revenue funds, we have capital improvement funds. There's different funds, different types, that money in, money out, specifically for specific things.
And why do we do that? Why do we have so many funds that are so specific? Is it transparency?
Transparency would be a big one, and it's in order because we have to have each fund balanced also by the end of the year. So we have to make sure that that money coming in is specifically for the expenses that are allowed into that fund. That way it is transparent to show our auditors, our bankers, anybody who's looking at any of our different documentation, residents especially, that we're accounting for the money that we are receiving for the governmental purposes to be spent for the specific needs that they need to be for.
And then lastly, as the stormwater guy, I know for a fact that in the past, developers built stormwater infrastructure, and maybe the community wasn't so happy with some of their development. We had to go back in and fix those anyway. So instead of that, we have decided that we will take cash in lieu from developers to improve stormwater. Where would those funds go? To the general fund?
No, those go to the Stormwater Fund, which is an enterprise fund that Michael explained earlier. You have charges for service that come into there that's charged to the water bills. And we have the biggest portion of the revenue that comes in there is from developer agreements. And that when we get money in there, then we work with the different areas that we're required to, the water, you probably know the different.
Yeah, absolutely.
Another acronym that I can't think of off the top of my head right now. We work with them specifically for the stormwater purposes. So that is its own fund. It's an enterprise fund, and it funds itself.
And then real quick for Weldy, again, back to our regional draw map.
Yes.
So we can see some, in my opinion, some natural boundaries. On that map, you can see the ridge that
Correct.
resides between Castle Rock and Parker.
Mm-hmm.
But Castle Rock actually came over the ridge, much to our chagrin, and took up cobblestone.
Yes.
But those folks don't always go back over the ridge, do they?
No, it typically depends on commute patterns, especially as it relates to grocery being convenient. Can you quickly stop on your way home from work to pick up a couple groceries here and there? Or you're combining trips, depending on where you live, out east, south, typically the combined multiple trips into Parker to buy various things. So you might run to the grocery store, you might run to Home Depot, you might then eat lunch. It would roll and likely have a larger effect. But
So at 50% revenue on groceries or sales tax gained by non-residents, it's safe to say that every dollar a citizen spends, another dollar is matched by a non-citizen, correct?
I think that's a very conservative approach to assume that, yes.
Thank you.
Councilmember Wilkes.
So, not sure which one of you can answer this, but I got a few questions. But the first one, so I see that it's circulating a lot about Lone Tree. People keep comparing Parker to Lone Tree, and because Parker doesn't collect sales tax on because Lone Tree doesn't collect sales tax on groceries, they think that it's apples to apples. Can someone please talk to me about how Lone Tree is different from Parker?
I'll take this one.
Got it?
Yeah, I'll take this one. So actually, I can answer this because I was the deputy city manager at Lone Tree for 7 years. So I'm very familiar with Lone Tree. You can't really compare apples to apples with Lone Tree. We all have similar funding sources, but the way we do them are always different. So both Parker and Lone Tree, yes, both have sales tax. Ours is 3%, Lone Tree's is 2.5%. They do not collect or apply their sales tax to groceries or automobile sales, which we do. We have a property tax of 2.602. Lone Tree does not have a city property tax. We do not have a Parks and Recreation property tax. The Parks and Recreation property tax in Lone Tree is 8.32 mils. We have 0 for that. So in reality, when you kind of look at Parks and Recreation, I would say for Parker residents, it's a bit of a steal. You're getting Parks and Recreation for 3% sales tax and 2.6 mils property tax. In Lone Tree, the reason why it's 8.32 mils property tax is because they do not provide Parks and Recreation. Their residents get their Parks and Recreation through South Suburban Parks and Rec, which is a larger district that they share their amenities with Littleton, Centennial, Columbine Valley, Bomar, Lone Tree, of course, unincorporated Douglas County, Jeffco, and Arapahoe County, versus our residents. They get their sales tax and property mill towards their Parks and Rec, which then is a smaller population of just us. Additionally, we both have lodging tax. Ours is 3%, Lone Tree's is 6%. Admissions tax, many cities, as you saw from Michael's spreadsheet before, or he's talked about it, admissions tax. Parker does not have an admissions tax. Lone Tree has a 4% admissions tax. What that is, that's a tax on when you go to the movie theater, when you go to, if you have a gym membership, it's any kind of membership or admission. So, if we have Lifetime, if we had an admissions tax, you'd be paying a tax on your membership to Lifetime. That also means that Lone Tree residents pay an admissions tax when they go to their Lone Tree Art Center. Our residents here, when they go to a performance at Pace or the Schoolhouse, they do not have to pay the 4% admissions tax that Lone Tree has. Additionally, most of Lone Tree west of I-25 is within the Park Meadows Metropolitan District, which is additional property tax of 6.387 mils on a house, on a residence, and that provides, they partner with Lone Tree to provide landscaping for their streetscapes, medians, as well as many of the road projects. They recently worked with Lone Tree and did the Lincoln overlay. They provided funds towards that. So I hope that answers your question.
So it's safe to say it's like 2 to 3 times more expensive.
It's definitely, I mean, that Parks and Rec property tax of 8.32, that's a considerable amount of funds that Lone Tree residents are paying for their parks and recreation that our residents do not.
Perfect, thank you. Rhonda, I don't know if you have this available, so hopefully you do, and if not, sorry for this. Can you tell me about how much tobacco tax we collected in 2023?
We don't collect it as a sales tax. There is an excise tax put onto it at the store, and it's shared back to us through the state. I don't have that number on top of my head right now, but I can get the information for you, and we could bring it in as cigarette tax, and it is remitted to us from the state of Colorado.
Okay, I guess more specifically, it's one of the things I've seen is, maybe a way to, which again would require a vote, is to increase the tobacco tax. And I am just curious, we would have to increase it by like
it would
1,000%?
Be a lot, and I don't know. I'm not going to.
You're fine.
Yeah.
If you can get me that number, thank you. And then I'm not sure who's going to answer this, but I just want to confirm. So we've got the Salisbury Park expansion, I guess we can call it, and we've got the Dransfeld Road widening and expansion that's going to connect Dransfeld to to Motzenbacher. With this going away from, I think, what I saw in the presentation, both of those improvements are at risk for funding. Is that accurate?
For the Dransfeld extension with the...
I know we're getting funds from other places, but I'm talking about like the Salisbury Park and that thing.
Oh, the Salisbury Park? Mm-hmm. Absolutely. It would delay the project, I'm guessing, or things would really have to be rearranged in order to fund it. We talked about it in a study session, but it's budgeted for $75 million, and we're already having to phase that out because we don't have the savings right now. We were planning on doing it in phases in order to be able to afford it. So if the Parks and Recreation Fund is impacted by this, then that would just delay the project more, or we would really have to cut some of the amenities that are part of the project.
So the residents that are all over the town and looking forward to this Salisbury Park would probably be disappointed if we had to phase a lot of things out or pause it.
It would be. So, and then Michael just pulled up the cigarette taxes that were shared back from the state of Colorado. What year is that, 24?
This 23 and 24 is what we have.
Okay. Is about $120,000 a year. So we'd have to fill the gap in for the 13.2 million, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Councilmember Hefta?
Thank you. So if I have a couple of questions, one for Mr. Maloney but one for Tom, our Director of Public Works and Engineering. Tom, obviously it's a very difficult, complex issue. And so getting all the facts on the table is always most important. Can you talk to the construction inflation since 2020, since you are the Director of Public Works and Engineering, and how that has impacted the town?
So it's impacted the town pretty substantially. In 1 year, between the year of 2022, I believe early 2022 to early 2023, we saw roughly an 18 to 20% increase in construction costs in just a 1 year period. Since 2020, it's averaged probably close to 10% annually as far as construction cost increases. As pertains to the matter at hand, we have different buckets of funds that come to the town to build capital projects. And so obviously the new roads, the new traffic signals, those types of things that we build, a lot of those funds come from excise taxes, come through outside sources of funding. But we also do get a share of the sales tax funding our capital improvement roadway or transportation type projects. What will probably be impacted the most if we were to lose revenue and have to cut budgets is in our operations budgets, which include our street maintenance projects, like our overlay type projects, our signal repair, traffic signal repair type projects, projects that are funded through the general fund. Those construction cost increases also impact those types of maintenance and operations type projects. And so if we were to lose, say we had to cut 15% out of our repair and maintenance budgets for traffic and for roadway, that would set us back even further as far as the amount of streets that we'd be able to maintain in the future, because construction costs are going to continue to go up. And if we're having to cut 15 to 20% of what we're being able to maintain today versus next year, it's going to continue to shrink and shrink. And so that's really how it impacts our department from an operations perspective.
Yeah, I think the key on that is since 2020, these inflated prices have gone up. Did you say at least 10%?
On average, yes.
On average, but then you don't see them coming back down at any point, and they just going to continue to grow.
Yes, ma'am. Since I've started with the town in 2020, I don't think I've ever seen a year where construction costs have actually gone down.
Thank you so much,
Welcome.
Tom. And then this next question is for Mr. Maloney. Now, those of you that don't know Mr. Maloney, he's been with the town about 30 years now. And so he's seen just about everything, really. So Mr. Maloney has seen other citizen ballot initiatives come and go within the town, correct, sir?
That is correct.
Okay. So, and I'm asking for general purposes, just because you seem to be the head of the committee here, Mr. Maloney.
I'm just providing legal
Yeah.
support and helping to draft a resolution.
Well, you're always the leader in some way or shape or form. So, since you've seen so much in the town, you've seen other petitions come to the town. Has there ever been a time when other citizens' ballot initiative groups have come to the town and maybe wanted to talk to the town about what they're proposing? And to your knowledge, has this particular group, the Parker Citizens for Fair Taxes, come to the town to talk to the town at all? Can anyone answer this, or Mr. Maloney?
I can't answer it. I'm not aware of any contacts with the town.
Okay. And so, can they request a meeting with the town?
Of course they can, yes.
Okay. And they can request to talk to the town about the town's budget and what they're proposing and any item on the table between the two groups, right?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Councilwoman, do we take an answer from me?
Sure.
So I will point out that there was a previous citizen initiative to save Pine Curve et al., and that group came to the town to talk. And Councilman Dyack and I met with 3 leaders of that initiative for a few meetings to see if we could come to an agreement. So this council, I believe, would be very open, and this room and this building would be very open to hear from what the drivers are for that citizens initiative.
And so just to further elaborate on that, since the elected officials met with the citizens group, you could have a combination of elected citizens meeting with the group, or just so we're clear here, or would it be the town staff?
It really would be whomever the citizens group wishes to meet with. It's always, it would be fine to meet with staff and we can, get our books out and go over everything. And then if there were other questions at more of that policy level, they could certainly meet with the elected officials as well.
So the town is open to that?
Correct.
Because the town regularly will meet with citizens on a variety of matters, and this is just another citizens group that could come to the town to request a meeting with the town or the elected officials.
Absolutely.
Oh, thank you for clarifying that. I have no further questions.
All right. For me, I'll talk about, this is like fund accounting here. This is kind of flashbacks for when I was starting. But maybe this is a Rhonda question. We have open budget, and what that is and I think I was an advocate for transparency purposes. But open budget, what does open budget provide the citizens or anyone who is looking there? Is it providing the holistic view of restricted funds or all funds within the town, select funds, or just the general fund?
Open budget is all of the funds. The landing page of the open budget website that is linked on our website is all of the funds combined. That includes, there's a revenue and expense page on there. I'm trying to drill down to it in my memory.
Yeah.
So on the revenue side, currently it shows $286 million of revenue. What we do is, because our budgets have to balance, we show that revenue as new revenue coming into the town plus savings from prior years of fund balance in order to pay for all the expenditures that are going out of all of the funds. And that also includes interfund transfers back to fund accounting. So that's where we, for example, I'm going to keep bringing up excise tax because that's what we've been talking about. We have $24 million of excise tax being transferred from the excise tax to the Public Improvements Fund in 2024 to pay towards the Dransfeld extension. So then other projects, there's Lincoln widening and there's other projects that come through in order to balance that fund. So the $286.12 million is not new revenue coming into the town. It's in order to have us so that we can have a balanced budget.
Yeah.
If you drill into and click into where the revenues are, it's very user-friendly. You can click into, you can see the use of fund balance. It has its own stream. It's called fund balance. There's a section called transfers. So if you go in there, you can see where the money is coming from as you drill into there instead of just looking at the landing page.
So to me, and again, I think it's a valuable tool to understand what is happening or what is coming through the town. But we use terms like our budget is $286 million. Our revenues are, and in fund accounting, that might be known between
Right.
the people that the revenues are taxes in addition to contributed monies, if you will, from other municipalities or other entities such as Douglas County. Dr. Cog, if we were awarded money to complete a project and other things, is that a fair statement?
Yes. And if you go into open budget, dwelling back on that, if you go into the general fund, I'm looking at the actual budget book that we have links to through the website, through open budget. $80 million is general fund.
Sure.
That is it.
Yeah.
It's not $286 million.
I understand. No, and again, I think this is sort of one of those things where when people. Again, this took me a long time to kind of translate what's going on in the private sector, and cash and accrual accounting to fund accounting is completely different. And we use revenues, but it says revenues and use of funds. So revenues is sort of a lazy way of articulating that it's in addition to tax, not to mention contributing money from other entities. Fair statement?
That's all the money that's coming in to pay for the expenses. So it's explore revenues and use of fund balance.
Sure. Okay. And then town services. We have this in the resolution, and town services. What are town services? Somebody touched on that before, but what are town services, and how do we pay for them? I mean, are they wages and salaries? Are they also contractors? What are town services?
Do you want to get it? No, go ahead. Okay, town services in regards to this resolution, as we are providing town services from the general fund. Sorry, I'm going to find the pie chart, maybe. So here are the town services that were in the general fund for 2023. You can see that majority of it is public works operations, public safety, parks and recreation. That's the parks part of the general fund, so the parks and trails. And we have public works capital. Those are really the big portions of town services that sales tax pays for.
Mm-hmm. So again, just to kind of keep it, to try to organize it for myself, maybe it might be helpful to others. I'm looking in the resolution 5A. Town services are paid from the general fund. In 2023, the general fund expenditures were $66.3 million. The remaining 2023 expenditures were in the capital and special services revenue funds that are legally restricted and not available for town services. So, to me, the sales tax, the grocery tax, all of the unrestricted ongoing taxes are generally located where?
In the general fund.
In the general fund, okay.
Yes.
So, and again, we have a park and rec fund which has the 0.5. But to me, I think this, from the resolution and just logically, the focus of this discussion of these facts, these statements in the resolution, again, are largely geared toward the general fund. It is in our budget. It's page 38 this year. The general fund is the main operating fund of the town. Town operations, which include police, public safety, public works, building inspection, community development, municipal court, administration, which includes town administration, as well as communications, finance, human resource departments, are accounted for in this fund. I am going to stop there because we have like 1,000-page document, and I'm not going to read all of it. But to me, this is largely, I think, what we're looking at is that when there's an adjustment, if you will, to sales tax, which the tax on grocery, this question would be, it would impact, again, those departments through salaries and wages that we give to the individuals. So I will kind of stop there, and I will open it up. We will start to take public comments. So at 8:38, I am happy to entertain public comment. I do not have any lists, so you're more than welcome to come up or make a line, and I am okay with that. So,
Mayor Pro Tem?
Yes.
If we can also acknowledge for the record that a written public comment was received today regarding this matter.
Thank you very much. We have, this will be in the records, correct? We have a public comment from Mr. Tom George of 1700 Lincoln Street regarding a public comment regarding this issue. So, thank you. I will open the public comment at this point, 8:38. Feel free. All right. Name Name and address for the record, and you have 3 minutes.
My name is David Williams, 12586 South Robinson Ranch Court. And I'd like to thank the mayor and each of the council people for allowing me to speak tonight. I'm going to speak at a high level. I'm not going to attempt to go into the details. It's not the appropriate place, and I'm not prepared. But I wanted to share some high-level thoughts for you to think about. As an introduction, I've spent almost 40 years consulting with businesses on customer relationship management. So I help them build and retain valuable customer relations. Tonight, what I've heard has been nothing about customers. It's been about what we need to operate the town. And my thought was, do we really know what the citizens want, or do we presume to know what's best for them? So if you look at a family budget, food's gone up 22% in the last 2.5 years. And just as indicated tonight, it's not going to go back down. And I know everyone thinks that what you do is really hard and nobody else can really do it. But every family thinks their budget's hard. And for them, it's difficult to work through. And so what I'd like to do is simply ask, how do you prioritize the decisions you make? And how do those relate back to those families that supposedly pay the bills? Now, 40 years ago, when Parker first became a town, they had to have sales tax for survival. If they wanted to have any city service or any police for protection, sales tax was a critical component. But 40 years later, this is a very, very different town. You know, compare the budget then to what the budget is now, compare the services then to what the services are now, and I would just throw in, what are we providing today that the people really want or may not care about, that in the town we think everything's important? And I only say this because the organizations I've worked with through my career, to them, everything was important until you got down to really understand what the customer wanted. And so really all I would ask, and I'm glad to know that we can speak with staff or whoever's interested in speaking, because we have some different views on the 12 points. I'm just going to wrap up by giving you an illustration. The zone, the commerce zone that was indicated, is pretty interesting. But you know, there's 11 towns either in or surrounding the commerce zone that sell the products we're talking about tonight. And 9 of them don't charge sales tax. And I know for a fact there are a lot of families that in the time they've lived in Parker have never done a full week's grocery shopping here. Because on the way home from work, they stop at Lone Tree or Aurora or Centennial, and regardless of whatever taxes those people pay, the folks that stop on the way home from work don't pay on the groceries before, you know, and they come on home.
Please wrap up. Thank you. Your 3 minutes has been allotted.
So I will get a hold of an appropriate person and we'll get together and talk. But please think about what the customers really want, not just the perspective of what you think they want.
Thank you very much. Next. Name and address for the record.
Hello, Town Council. My name is Rob Owens. I'm at 11038 20 Mile Road, Unit 2201 in Parker. As a customer of Parker, I raised my children in Parker and continue to operate my insurance agency here in town. I'm a part of a new issues committee called Truth in Parker. As a part of this committee, we have diligently been seeking out facts surrounding the town's budget that have been provided by the town of Parker and its award-winning finance department, as this is the heart of our purpose and mission as a committee. Truth in Parker is committed to fostering transparency and accountability within the town of Parker by using available public resources to shine the light of truth on local issues. Our mission is to empower residents with accurate information, promote informed decision-making, and uphold the values of honesty and integrity in all aspects of community life in Parker. I have also joined the Facebook group called Parker Citizens for Fair Taxes. My experience with this group tells me that they have an agenda to remove a tax on grocery items that has been in place for decades and have been attempting to collect signatures for a petition to put the removal of this tax on the upcoming November ballot. The folks running this group share half-truths and misrepresent the actual numbers that the town has put out regarding this issue, and when they are faced with legit questions such as, how do you propose we go about replacing the millions of dollars of lost revenue if this tax is removed, or actual facts that come straight from the, I'll say it again, award-winning finance department, they censor you by first limiting the amount of contributions you can make through posts and comments, and then when that still doesn't silence you, they take away your ability to post or comment in the group altogether. The dishonesty from this group and the blatant display of not willing to be transparent or engage in an honest conversation about the tax they are proposing for the town to do away with causes me to strongly encourage this town council to not only share the facts with the public surrounding this issue, but to also take a stand against this citizens initiative group in particular. Furthermore, there have been several reports that the city of Loveland, which recently voted to remove their 3% sales tax on food for home consumption, is projecting a budget shortfall of $1.1 million per month to their general fund, which is an annual projection of $13.2 million for 2024. One article quoted Loveland's chief financial officer as saying, "This means the council now faces some stark choices about whether it can remain a full-service city or whether some programs and services will have to go." So, back to Parker. 50-50 is a conservative number, so 50% conservatively are contributing from outside of the town of Parker for the services that we all enjoy. Given the continued growth of the surrounding area and the limited potential growth of Parker without any annexation, I would say we're getting a pretty good deal, and we'll continue to get a pretty good deal as long as this doesn't change. That being said, it makes absolutely no sense to me that anyone who enjoys this town and the services it provides and is paying attention would even consider eliminating the major source of revenue that allows for those services to be provided.
Wow, 4 seconds left. Nice going. All right, next up, please. Name and address for the record.
Okay, sorry, I'm short. My name is Leah Ryan. I'm at 1453 Debbie Circle, Parker, Colorado, 80138. I have lived in Parker for over 20 years. I've lived in Colorado my entire life, and I grew up in Aurora. When I moved here, I didn't know how amazing the town of Parker was until I really started spending a lot of time and getting to know a lot of the community. I am one of the thousands of people who lives outside of the boundaries of the town of Parker, but I spend my time and my money in the town limits. A lot of us benefit from all of the services that we've all talked about tonight, and to piggyback on what Rob just said, that if any of these were eliminated, a lot of us would really feel the burn of that. The events that I host, the businesses that I support, and the time that I spend here is because of how much I love our big little town that is full of history and camaraderie. It is safe, it is clean, it is welcoming, and so many people dream of living here, and we are all very lucky to be provided the opportunity to do so. If this grocery sales tax is eliminated, this town is going to face some very big financial troubles, which I think has become completely, evidently crystal clear tonight. I don't understand how it makes sense for anybody to support the removal of that sales tax, given the information that has been provided. That is nothing but facts. Thank you so much to the town staff that has been so thorough and diligent to provide that information. It helps me as just a normal citizen. It has absolutely nothing to do with any kind of financial or political anything in this town, understand really what is happening in a very clear and conscious explanation. I want to make sure that other people in the town of Parker understand the difference between if they do or don't live within the town limits and what will actually happen to the future of this town if the residents that live within the town that can vote for these issues, if they vote to remove this sales tax because they have not been properly educated and informed on what the brevity is of the removal. I also run a very large community group in Parker, and to the first gentleman who spoke's comment about what people in the town of Parker want and love, there's so many people that want to live here and do live here because of all of these services and amenities that the town provides. And there have been years of people commenting about wanting Whole Foods and Trader Joe's. Like, it's almost a joke with us in these community groups. So I do not feel like the Parker Citizens for Fair Taxes group is being truthful or transparent when trying to explain this and what this ballot initiative means when they're trying to get signatures to add it to the ballot. There's a lot of missing information in their delivery, and I do not think that the majority of the town of Parker residents who can vote for these items would provide their signatures if they knew the facts and the truth behind the future of these potential issues that our town faces. I don't know why this is even up for discussion. The removal of this sales tax, it's, in my opinion, in layman's terms, for lack of a better phrase, it's like quitting a very well-paying job before you have another one lined up. It seems very irresponsible, and I just does not make sense to me, and I hope that that makes sense to everybody else. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next up, please. Anybody? Oop.
Good evening. My name is Teresa Hawkins Garcia. I live at 11420 East Regency Court in Parker. I am not only a resident, but also a small business owner in Parker. I have owned Victoria Marie Jewelers for the last 12 years. And as a resident and business owner, I am more than alarmed at the proposed initiative to eliminate the so-called grocery tax. Rob had all of the data and the details, and I think that Leah supplied a lot of the heart. And in answer to the gentleman's question, what do the consumers want? Well, I am your consumer. We're all consumers, and I think what we all want is exactly what we have in Parker, and that is a beautiful, safe community that provides us with over 1,000 acres of public parks, how many miles of public trails that we can enjoy with our children. And we have a vibrant business community, which has been made abundantly clear is being threatened by this proposed tax. And I am with Leah. I am befuddled at how anyone could reasonably expect that removing a very large, as we can see, amount of our general fund without a proposed remedy. How are you, as Mr. Rivero pointed out, in our own personal finances, we all have to make choices. I would like to ask the people who have proposed this initiative, what do they propose we do without? Because as it's been made clear tonight, it's not as if we can just take from one fund to another. We can't take from Peter to pay Paul, just because that's what we would like to do. We are all faced with the rising cost of construction, the rising cost in groceries, but that does not mean that we can simply eliminate what is the main source of funding for education and support services for our police department, for all of the other provided services in our town. And I hope that with the information that the finance department, award-winning finance department has put together, once the town residents have that information available, I feel that they will be able to make a very reasonable and the right choice, which is not to eliminate the sales tax. But as was pointed out, the group that has proposed this initiative is not being truthful with the information they're putting out. They're picking and choosing, and no one knows where they're getting their funds from, their information from for their statistics, because obviously they haven't talked to anybody at town or anybody on council about it. And I would just like to go on record. I also belong to the Truth in Parker Facebook page, because I believe that that's what we need. If we put the facts out, we put the truth out, people will make the right decision. At least I hope so. Thank you and have a nice night.
Thank you very much. Next. Oh, uh-oh.
Erase.
Hi there.
Hello.
Name's Ryan Ivis, address 12206. Oh my goodness, I just moved in. Sorry, guys. It's been a whirlwind, and I'm nervous up here standing here. Anyway, South Season Court. So I've lived here for really the better part of 28 years, on and off, going to college, coming back. My family's here. We've lived in and around Parker the entire time. Currently, my family's in Idlewild. I just had a baby, so it's pretty exciting, and I'm tired and all that good stuff that goes with that. I've worked my entire professional life in a really high-pace, high-stress cybersecurity leadership role, defending Colorado and other U.S. companies and banks from nation-state threats. It's been a huge part of my life, and I've struggled through all this with the hope to return to Parker, right? Save money, get a home down here, and have a family down here. So one of the big reasons I've done this, I'm just going to throw that out because I'm nervous, but one of the big reasons I've done that is this town has some of the best parks, has some of the best trails, has some of the best living experiences, and most importantly for me and my personal family, some of the best law enforcement and some of the best first responders that exist in kind of the Denver metro area. CLIA accredited, a bunch of good things going on with that agency that others do not have. The throwing out of this really puts that at risk, right? And it changes the dynamics of what Parker could be in the future, and it changes my perspective on where I'm moving. So I'm really hoping that this does not go through. This is pretty critical for my family not to go through. I guess I'll just close up by saying, I appreciate what the council's doing here. As a kind of a town member or just a citizen, not seeing the mayor sitting there is frustrating and it's sickening. And I know that there's legal things going on with that, but I hope that comes to fruition in the next vote. So anyway, that's what I got.
Thank you very much. Number one is approaching the stage. Name and address.
Well, I'm Carol Baumgartner at 11286 Edinburgh Way. I wasn't going to speak. However, I'm not too happy with this group that's trying to get rid of the sales tax. I've lived in Parker 50 years. I worked for the town for 40. And to let you know, no one ever came and asked to get rid of the sales tax. I don't know where these people are coming from. They all moved here since we have, almost 70,000 people, because they like Parker the way it is, what you have. If they didn't like it, they wouldn't be here. Why did you all move here? Because you like what we have. And if you take this away, you're going to get rid of the staff, the police department, everything else is going to break. And you're going to have nothing. So therefore, you have to get everybody to get out and not vote for this thing. Hopefully they don't get enough of signatures, and this person that was for this group left. He didn't want to hear these people talk because they know how wrong they are. And your mayor I'm just shocked at him, but that was his election deal when he came the first time. He couldn't get it done, so he's doing it now so that he wants to get elected again. I hope he doesn't. So I hope somebody else runs beside him. I know it's political, but I think I deserve to be a little political after all these years. Anyway, go ahead and pass your resolution.
You got a minute and 23 seconds left, Carol. Anything
Pardon?
else?
Huh?
You got like a minute and 19 seconds left. Is there anything else you want to tell us?
No, it's good to see you all.
Too.
And I hope you all vote the way you should.
All right. Thank you.
And
you can keep standing there for a minute and 4 seconds.
That's okay, Joe.
3. Okay.
You did a good job.
Okay. All right. Anybody else? Kara's like the showstopper. Nobody else? All right. We will we'll close public comment at 8:58.
Hang on.
Well, we'll close public comment, so Mayor Pro Tem is going to close public comment. We'll have a chance to follow up questions.
No, not follow-up questions. I want to make sure that this public
Yeah, I
comment that we
wanna-
received is read into record.
Oh,
Can I read it?
Jamie, should we read it into the record? Is that an appropriate thing?
You can, for sure.
Okay, so we will reopen public comment at 8:58. Councilmember Barrington, is that what you're doing? Okay.
Okay, so this is from Tom George, 1700 Lincoln Street, Suite 2000, Denver, Colorado 80203. He is, okay, I'm just going to read this. The following comments are provided on behalf of KPS Retail LLC in connection with the Town Council's consideration of Resolution Number 24-028, captioned "A resolution to address the financial impact to the town if the purchase of food for home consumption is exempt from the town's sales tax." KPS is currently developing a new shopping center on the northwest corner of the intersection of Cottonwood Drive and Kings Point Way to include a brand-new Whole Foods grocery store and a Starbucks coffee shop, The Project. The project will provide the town with a new, high-quality, retail-supported commercial center that is estimated to create more than 50 diverse jobs and employment opportunities and provide needed infrastructure improvements. But the project faces very challenging economic conditions, including high inflation, high construction costs, supply chain delays, and high borrowing costs. KPS approached the town more than a year ago to explore potential partnerships or incentives that could facilitate completion of the project in light of the challenging economic conditions faced. The town identified its existing shopping center assistant program as one tool available to the town and KPS to support the project as a win-win opportunity. KPS greatly appreciated the opportunity afforded by the existing shopping center assistant program and thoughtfulness of town staff, and the parties negotiated a shopping center assistance program agreement to provide a $3.2 million sales tax revenue sharing incentive to be repaid to KPS over a period of up to 7 years from sales tax revenues derived only from the project. This $3.2 million revenue sharing agreement is critical to the financial viability of the project. On November 6, 2023, the Town Council unanimously approved the $3.2 million shopping center assistance program agreement with KPS for the project. On February 5th, 2024, the Town Council unanimously approved an amended and restated shopping center assistance program agreement with KPS, amended for the limited purpose of correcting KPS legal name shown on the agreement as corrected. The KPS agreement. Sorry, this is kind of long. KPS therefore broke ground on the project, relying in good faith on the approved KPS agreement and the incentive it provides. Just last week, on March 26, 2024, KPS was surprised to learn that on February 5, 2024, the same night Town Council unanimously approved the corrected KPS agreement, Town Council discussed in executive session a proposed initiative and referendum for the Parker Citizen for Fair Taxes, the tax initiative, that aims to reduce grocery sales tax by exempting the purchase of food for home consumption from the town's sales tax. The tax initiative, if put into effect, would all but decimate the town's existing shopping center assistant program and the $3.2 million sales tax sharing incentive set forth in the KPS agreement, thereby threatening the economic viability of the project as a whole. KPS was even more surprised to learn that there is a conflict of interest posed by one member of Town Council's direct involvement with the tax initiative. At no time was the tax initiative the conflict of interest or the potential gutting of the KPS agreement revenue source disclosed publicly or to KPS directly before the Town Council discussed, negotiated, or completed the KPS agreement, or before Town Council voted unanimously to approve it. On November 6, 2023, and again on February 5, 2024. Further, it was unclear whether anyone from the town participated in discussions, negotiations, or votes relating to tax initiative and/or the KPS agreement or had knowledge of the same by others between November 6th and February 5th, 2024, in contravention of their responsibilities, ethical obligations, or duty to the public trust. As stated above, following Town Council's approval of the KPS agreement, KPS broke ground on the project. KPS has to date spent more than $3 million on site improvements for the project, and KPS continues daily to incur significant development costs to advance the progress of nearly 18 million?
Yep.
So, like, that's a lot of zeros on it. And off-site public improvements in reliance on KPS agreement. KPS must now, on a daily and increasing cost basis, assess whether continuing to incur costs for the project is prudent in light of risks proposed by the citizen initiative. And it's possible that if the tax initiative, oh my gosh, do we get the point? Should I continue?
Yeah, you're almost done. Just finish up.
To pass successfully, KPS might be forced to stop the project altogether as financially unviable at an exposure in excess of $4 million. Had KPS been made aware of the tax initiative and the town individuals involved in it before the KPS agreement was approved by Town Council, KPS and the town may have explored alternative cooperative arrangements to support the project, or KPS might have delayed commencing the project until market conditions improved. In light of foregoing, KPS respectfully requests the town to work quickly with KPS to identify and implement alternatives to preserve the cooperative and mutually beneficial purpose of the KPS agreement and to mitigate potential harm to KPS. Sorry. KPS believes the town's current sales tax rate, which was approved incrementally by the town's own voters over the years, provides vital revenue to the town to support the town and its citizens, including but not limited to its parks, open space, public safety, and other critical services, and allows Parker to be the vibrant place it is where people want to live, work, shop, and play. KPS urges Town Council and businesses and residents in Parker to continue to support the current sales tax in place. Was that more than 3 minutes?
Yeah. All right. Since we're open again, anybody else got a burning desire to come to the mic and let us know for 3 minutes what you're thinking on this? Okay. We will then close public comment at 9:06, and we'll bring it back to council for discussion, comments, deliberation. Councilmember Wilkes.
Okay, so.
I think I have some questions before we get into
Oh,
deliberation, if you could. Is that okay? Can we continue with questioning?
Usually the question part is before, but yeah, let's.
Well, I think that there were questions raised in the public comment that I would like to see the answer to, even though maybe a citizen didn't have the time to stick around for his question.
Sure.
For example, how do we prioritize the decisions we make when it comes to a budget?
Well, actually, I'm going to, outside of the budget, I'll let you, if you want to respond to that. I was actually taking more of the approach of, in terms of what are the priorities of the citizen.
Well, I was going to get to that one next.
Oh, all right. Well, I'm jumping the gun here. You know, with that comment and the feedback that we received, we do citizen surveys. We do a lot of different citizen surveys, but we do a townwide, you know, it's not every single person because it's randomly selected. You can't capture everybody, but it's statistically reliable survey. And it's a lengthy survey that asks all sorts of different questions about their services and operations and prioritizes what people are looking for from this community. Everything down to how we communicate. What is the best way that you want to be communicated with? What kind of events do you want? That's how we determine how we are serving our residents, how we're serving our community, is through the citizen survey, through town meetings, through interacting at farmers market. There's a lot of different opportunities for us to kind of test the water, temperature. We've got Citizen Academy, we have Civic Academy, and those are all methods for us to determine, are we headed in the right direction? We have a strategic plan that also is determining this is what's important. And you guys. You guys represent the citizens.
Yeah, we are the representatives of the citizens, and we hear from our constituents on a daily basis. Back to the citizen survey, since you went there so quickly.
Yes,
I'm very proud of it
All
too,
right.
because not only we run a scientific survey, and the scientific numbers are grabbed and calculated and guide this council and this staff into our daily decisions. But also, on top of that, we open the same survey up to the general public.
Correct.
Do those numbers coincide? Do we see the same percentages for the choices, whether it's a scientific survey and also just anybody that wants to answer survey?
Yes, they do.
And what are the top 3 asks from those citizens?
I'm looking at Emily because we're in the middle of actually issuing that survey again. It'll be going out in the next couple of months. We've got the final draft of it that we're pulling together.
Let me rephrase my question. Is it fair to say
Yes.
that Parks and Rec, police, and infrastructure are in the top 5 asks on a
Yes.
year-to-year basis?
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes.
And back to Rhonda real quick. So priority-based budgeting, I know that's a trademarked word and we can't use that and whatnot, but
Yeah, so that's more for the capital type
Okay.
items in our budget. What we do within the different departmental budgets, we make sure that they follow the strategic plan and the goals that have been put a part of the policy that council gives us. We make sure that as we are creating new programs that are requested by the citizens, like anything in the parks, do we plow the roads at 6 inches? Do we maintain roads to where people can drive and not be in potholes? That type of information we take into account. We have staff who knows they're subject matter experts in their fields. They know when a road needs to be repaved. The police department knows when to go on a call. So there are the subject matter experts, and then we apply the department budgets towards the needs of those departments in order to run efficiently and effectively for the department and the town.
and those are cross-department, correct? Interdepartment. We have, maybe the chief of police sits in on a budget meeting that might affect public works, or maybe the cultural sits in, and different department directors.
We meet individually with departments and as departments as a whole. We have, for the capital piece of the budget, there is a scoring process. That's not as affected by the sales tax right now.
Yep.
It might be in the future when excise tax starts dwindling down because we will not have new development coming in paying the excise tax. So sales tax will be pressured to pay more of the capital improvement projects because there will be when we're fully built out and we don't have new excise tax coming in from new development, we're going to have to find a way to maintain our infrastructure to the way that the Parker citizens want.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you.
Did anybody else hear any questions that were not answered during public comment? All right. Councilmember Wilkes?
All right. So I just want to start with a quote of, "Opinions are not facts, and they do not affect the facts. However, if you are logical, then the facts should affect your opinion." So one of the things that I am not very quiet on is actually listening to the citizens. So I think it's kind of appropriate that a comment was made about what the people actually want. So my family's been here 52 years. We are a third generation. I am third generation Parker native. So when it comes to what the people of Parker want, I actually feel like I could probably speak on this a little bit. But more importantly, I did hear what he said. And what I'm taking out of that is maybe there's just some more education that needs to go out there. So the average household savings, and this is if you're actually spending money on your food for consumption the whole time and nothing else. So I'm not going to read all of my numbers that I have here. I'm just going to go with myself as a family of 6, just so we can make sure everybody's clear. If we were to spend $250 a week on just food for home consumption, which is pretty accurate, times the 52 weeks, times the 3% tax, it's $390 annually. So less than $400 in savings for my family of 6 with this proposed cut. What I would be losing from that, this is 100% a no-brainer for me. I have made it very clear where I stand when it comes to people having the legal right to bring an initiative. More power to you. Do it. I'm not talking about that. What I'm talking right now is educating our citizens out there, as we've heard in comments. And when it comes to getting the facts out there versus an opposition, I'm not just thinking about the people of Parker. I'm not thinking about just their well-being. I'm thinking about the people in this room. I'm thinking about the morale for our police officers. I'm thinking about the morale for our staff and all of the departments that would be affected by this, because every single department is going to be affected. And I want them to know that, I will speak for myself, this council member is willing to fight, to do whatever it takes to make sure our officers know that they are respected and wanted and protected in this community, that our staff members know that they run the town. We look to you. We look to your support. We look to your award winning. We look to your guidance. We look to your knowledge. There's a plethora of many, many decades of knowledge here. And I want every single staff member and every single police officer and every single department to know that when it comes to this, we have your back. I want the morale of everybody to stay up there. I also want to point out that property taxes. So it's come up a lot. As our financial department presented, thank you, it was wonderful, and every other staff member, we have low mills right now. We are at 2.602 mills. So in order for us to make up this deficit, which again, it's not up to us, it would still be a vote. Right now, I pay $133 a year in property taxes to the town of Parker. I understand that property taxes have increased. We all understand that. Every single person that owns a home knows that our property taxes increased. It sucks. We don't like it. Nobody likes to pay more money than we should. But that money doesn't come to the town of Parker. We pay $133 right now on our property taxes. If we needed to increase to make up this deficit, we'd go from 2.602 mils to 12.343 mils. That's an increase for just the Parker citizens. It would take me up to $537 a year. Yes, that's not going to break the bank, but that's falling on our citizens. That's not addressing all of the people that we've so clearly made come and shop from outside of our town limits. And it's the citizens that are going to end up paying for it. And it's the citizens that are going to end up getting really pissed that they have to pay more. And excuse my language, sorry about that. I get a little heated. So for me, it's more about what do we do to protect our town right now, but also listen when we have citizens telling us that maybe they are on a fixed income. Maybe they do need a little bit of assistance. If you are one of those people listening and you qualify for the low income household for things such as food assistance or the federal supplemental nutrition assistance program, you are already exempt from paying tax on groceries. So if you are in that situation and you live in our town and you are hurting, and so you think that you want to sign this initiative and you want to get a relief on your tax bills that you pay, apply for these. See if you qualify for them. The other thing that I just want to point out there for our council is the neighborhoods that support us in here, I talk to them too, because they don't necessarily realize that they don't live in our town and they enjoy our town. And so I want them to know we're not just fighting for the Parker citizens, we're fighting for all the people that don't live in Parker that do want to come and enjoy everything in Parker. So we hear you guys and we see you guys too, and we understand that you don't want to see any of these things go away in Parker more than the people that live here do. So I know tonight we're just getting the facts out there. I am just going to encourage council to vote yes on this resolution, and I'm going to encourage every single person listening out there to think before you sign and really get the facts. I'm not going to tell you what you can and can't do. I'm just asking that you actually research the facts before you make a decision. Thank you.
Councilmember Hefta.
Sure. So I'm hoping the high school students in the audience tonight are following along. And so I'm just going to speak to y'all a little bit because I know that you're taking notes on this as well as folks out there listening. I want to start off by saying I have a great deal of empathy for the two groups here that are affected, one being the town. So the town is in this position right now where their costs have gone up, as Tom has mentioned, for construction costs, 10%. And so that's across the board since 2020. But the other group that is affected is the average citizen. And their costs have probably gone up about 20% across the board for energy, housing, rent, vehicles, and food. And so for me, we're all unique here up on this council, and we've gotten along well. We all have a different perspective of what we bring to the table and what we're going to say. And some council members may choose to prosecute the case and try to convince you why you should oppose or not oppose the grocery tax. But as a trained lawyer for over 30 years, I choose to focus on the process. There is a process in which we bring things in the United States of America. And that process is in law. Now, I can't speak to finances, so I won't speak to that. And I would not dare question our town's finances on that at all. I would not do that. But I speak to the process. And what is that process? It's a citizen ballot initiative process. Now, for our students in the audience, if they want to understand what's happening here tonight, what we have before us is a resolution that we're going to vote on. And that resolution is neutral right now to put out the facts that you've heard tonight. Now, you've heard from one citizens group tonight here, and that citizens group has, in accordance with Parker Municipal Code 14, Section 4.1, the 2022 Colorado Code, Title 31, Municipal Government, Section 3111-106, Form of Petitions, in the Colorado Constitution, Article 5, Section 1, and state statutes, Articles 40 and 41 of the Colorado Revised Statutes, has put a petition into the town in accordance with the local ordinance and the Colorado Constitution to see if they can get enough signatures on the ballot, on their petition, and they have to get those signatures in the town that for folks that live here. So they have to get valid signatures, and they're going to try to get those signatures and get this matter on the ballot by, say, August. This measure right now is not currently on the ballot. It is not currently on the ballot. And so you've also heard from another group in town called Truth in Parker. And that group is challenging the truth of the first group. So you have the Parker Citizens for Fair Taxes, and you have the Truth in Parker. And both of them have a right under our First Amendment to put out all the information they want on this matter. Now, should this matter make the ballot, because it's not currently on the ballot, it has to go to our town clerk over there, Miss Chris Vanderpool. And she's the one later on who's going to determine if those signatures are valid or not, and whether this issue makes the ballot. Just so you know how our process works. So the town tonight is putting out their information. And should you want to read about that information, you can find that on the town website. The town is going to put out their information of what they said tonight on the town website. And should you want to read about the Citizen Ballot Initiative, you can go ahead and do your research on that. Just type that into your search bar and see what comes up, and do your research on the Citizen Ballot Initiative in Colorado. And so as a trained attorney with over 30 years, I respect the process, and I respect the folks coming in this room, everybody that spoke tonight, and all the facts getting out there. And should this make the ballot in August, then the citizens and residents of Parker, Colorado, all 67,000 or however many decide to vote on this issue, will determine whether this grocery tax reduction takes place or not. So I hope I've provided a little bit of information to our high school students tonight. I see nodding heads. Thank you very much. I was a professor for 10 years of law, and I really do take great pride in protecting the process that we have in the United States, as opposed to taking a position of for or against. What's important to me is the process.
Councilmember Hendricks.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Wow. So, spent a lot of time thinking of what I'm going to say today. I normally don't talk that much up here, but when things get me fired up as topics like this, I kind of roll with the punches and think of something witty to say. But really, I want to tell a story. So a couple years ago, I'm in IT, and I decided to do a career shift to something called pre-sales, and some parts of that is something called discovery, where you try to find information and facts, and then the other part is to tell a story. So in that aspect, that's what I'm going to do. My wife and I moved here 20 years ago. We picked Parker to raise a family. Part of that reasoning was good schools, a safe community. There was a lot to offer. And to this day, there's a lot to offer. Throughout the years, Parker has gotten a lot of awards, but we know that it's run well. And some of these awards, I think, bears importance to speak out. Over the years, Parker's been awarded Best Place to Work from Home, Best Small Cities in America, Best Places to Live in America. There's pages of this. And they go over many, many, many years. Best Place to Live in the USA, Best Small City, and so forth. So we know it's a well-run town. So I was a customer or a citizen back in the day. Now I'm up here, but I'm still a customer. And back then and today, we get feedback from customers from Coffee and a Cop, from open houses that the town does, the surveys that was mentioned earlier. We have booths at the farmers market, so we know what the citizens want. That has never stopped. And all that experience has led me to be up here today to contribute to this community. So diving into this story more, I want to look into the finance department. We have a lot of great departments, but finance department here is where I'm trying to get more information of. And this department was awarded by the Government Finance Office Association, and this has been brought up many, many times, award-winning, but 35 years in a row, this has been awarded this distinction. So let that sink in. They know what they're talking about. There's other awards too, like Distinguished Budget Award, and other things right here. So let's say you don't care about that. They're crazy. Whatever. Who cares about awards? Well, in Todd Discovery time, it was mentioned by Rob, there's the city of Loveland. They actually are going through this right now. So I have articles from Loveland, and I want to share that with you. So this is from the fall of last year, where there was a citizen initiative trying to get rid of grocery tax. And for whatever reason, Loveland didn't do things to put out as much information, but it was too late. But back then, and I'm quoting, this is from their chief financial officer, Brian Waldes. Loveland officials caution the savings will come to expense of municipal services programs. The city stands to lose about $10.5 million in annual revenue. Now, this is in the fall of last year. They also say, like we've heard tonight, sales tax revenue is the largest single source of revenue in the city's general fund, about $65 million. Hey, that sounds familiar. We just talked about 60-something million here too. The tax on food on home consumption accounts for 16% of city sales tax revenue, or about $10.5 million. And then, this is pretty important to me, Loveland's Police Citizen Advisory Board did not take a position on the measure, but a letter from the chairman, Bill Kurtz, expressed concerns that the ballot measure would negatively impact or affect the police department's budget and overall public safety. So let that sink in. Fast forward to last month. Another article. Again, by the chief financial officer. Calling it a number he is extremely confident about, Loveland Chief Financial Officer Brian Waldes told the city council on Saturday that loss of sales tax on food will cost the city $1.1 million in general funds, or basically $13.2 million for this year, as Rob had mentioned earlier. You stole my thunder, but thanks. Okay, so now I got to bring it home. This is about quality of life. This is about maintaining or improving the community as a whole. For me, the biggest thing is the general fund for the the sales tax, rather, that funds the general fund, the biggest users, let's say, is Public Works and the police department. It was brought up, how construction costs are going up for Public Works. For me, the police is probably the most important department. I want them to have the best equipment they can have. I want them to have funding to be competitive with salaries and benefits, because guess what? Other towns are being competitive too. It's not exactly the hottest career choice nowadays, but we have to be competitive in order to maintain what we have as far as officers and grow. So that to me is very important. To show how old I am, I don't want Parker to become Pottersville. I want it to be Bedford Falls. And for the high schoolers, it's a Wonderful Life reference. So I think all council here supports any petition group's right to conduct their business. But for me, more importantly, I want the factual information be out to go to the citizens. There's a saying, whenever you sign a contract, you sign anything, read the fine print. Read the fine print. So for me, I support this resolution. Thank you.
Councilmember Barrington.
So there's a lot that I would like to say, but I think one thing that I don't know how, this probably might not be a popular thing to say, but I think there's an elephant in the room here, or not in the room. And I just think it's very disappointing that we have a person that is prioritizing personal gain over our community. And this person has lived here for the least amount of time of any of us up here. So I just feel like if this was such an important issue, why now, in an election year, is it coming back up? So, and while I support also the right to citizens' initiative and gathering signatures, misleading the public is unacceptable. So there's a lot more that I would like to say on this, but I'm going to leave it there. But the small amount that we contribute, it's just, with this grocery tax, it's so significant to the town. And what the gentleman that left mentioned, that, I don't know if his numbers are right, but 11 towns don't have a tax. The beautiful thing is, if you don't want to shop here and pay the tax, you don't have to. It's elective. But if this is forced back on the town to come up with some way to come up with additional money, our town is going to be, all of our constituents, they're going to have to shoulder this burden on their own. So it goes from being something completely elective to something that's mandatory. And you're not going to be able to get out of it if it's with a property tax. And we sure don't want to see that happen. So thanks, everyone, for coming tonight. Thanks for your great presentation.
Councilman Rivera.
Thank you. I think it's important to talk about what it is we're doing tonight, and that simply is stating the fact. In our resolution, if we pass it, it'll state the facts. Though right now we are in comment, and comments are individual feelings by each of us. They do not represent the feelings of the council as a whole. When there is action by the council, thus the vote you'll see in short time, that is a feeling of the whole. But these are an opportunity for us to individually speak as to why we may get to our choice in vote. And I want everybody to hear, both groups and all the citizens and all the de facto citizens that live outside of our community. You may have heard that we want to hinder citizens from the right to petition their government, and that is a lie. I am an ardent believer in our Constitution, and in fact, I have used the 5th and the 14th Amendments to conflict a former council member because I wholly believe in the due process guaranteed in our Supreme Court and supreme law of the land. What I don't have patience for and what I will stand against are lies. I will adamantly defend a person's right to collect signatures, but at the same time, I will not sit idly by if they're using lies to gather said signatures. The First Amendment guarantees us the right of free speech, of press, of religion. It also guarantees us the right to assemble, as we are here, and it guarantees us the right to petition our government, as groups are doing tonight. I fully believe I will defend that right with my life. But I will not allow lies to be spread if I have the ability in my role to spread the truth. And that's what we're going to do tonight. We are going to spread the truth. Who is a town? It was brought up, and it's very convenient sometimes, especially lately in politics, to separate the government from the people. The government is the people. We are the town of Parker. Everyone in this room, us representing you as your representatives of this board, we are the town of Parker. There is no us and them. You don't like something, you tell us. We make laws to change it. We do things. That's how representative government works. If you don't like the way we represent you, you don't like the business we conduct, vote us out. That's how things get changed. And that, unfortunately, has led to what people have brought up, is why now? Why in 20 was this an issue? Where did it go in 21, 22, and 23? Suddenly back in 24, grocery tax is an issue. That, unfortunately, is very inconvenient. Councilwoman Barrington touched on it. Elective tax versus non-elective tax. Grocery tax is deemed an elective tax. You don't have to shop at a place that collects grocery tax. You can drive. Just as Elizabethans drive to Parker to shop, Parkerites can drive to Elizabeth to shop if that's the case. Wherever those communities are that the gentleman from the group talked about, then you can go there and shop. It's an elective tax. When you force a community as a whole to decide to tax itself to do things, those taxes have to come from somewhere. If it's not from grocery tax, it no longer becomes elective. It now becomes a mandated tax, income tax, property tax, admission taxes on their own buildings. Who's heard of such things? A publicly owned building, we're going to charge you 4% to walk into your own building? I'm sorry, Lone Tree, but I don't agree. So when we have a grocery tax, not only is it an elective tax, but we also get $1 for every dollar we spend in our community from outside our community. That is a brilliant move. That is the founders of our community. The founders of our community set that up for a reason, because we are regional, because we are the hub of 188,000 people that come to Parker to shop. That is the way that was set up from the beginning. That is the dream of the founding fathers of this community, and we shouldn't change it now because some people say 67,000 things change. No, if there is a conservative, fiscally conservative tax out there, it's grocery tax. It is sales tax. That is the most conservative tax. And one more thing, you're going to hear a lot. You're going to hear bits and pieces of our excerpts from up here that you're going to see online, Nextdoor, Facebook, different pages. They're going to take little bits. One you'll see out there is Josh thinks taxes are sexy, and that goes back to what we were talking about earlier, because this is a campaign issue. There is the only reason it's coming up in 2024 is it doesn't pass now. Guess what? It's probably going to come back in 2026, and it's probably going to come back in 2028. On election years, it's become an issue. So secondly, and I'm sorry, and nearing the end here, what have we invested in? What have we created? You heard from the gentleman that's new to our community. His family's new to our community. We built a community that he wanted to move to. We built a community that he wanted to raise his family in. That's the same for all of us. We all moved here. I moved back here. I moved here originally in 1989. I graduated from Ponderosa many, many years ago. But when it was my turn to raise my family, where did I find myself? Parker. Because of the parks, because of the men and women in blue, because of the roads, because of everything that we do in this community, as a community together making those decisions, because this is the town that I wanted to raise my family in. And this is the town that was set up by the founding fathers and mothers of this community. So we've invested in property values. The gentleman that bought his house recently paid a pretty penny to live in this community, a pretty penny. But when that equity is served, he's going to own a pretty penny in this community because it works to own money. It works to own property in Parker. That is because we have the amenities that we have in this community. And then to touch on everything else, to get rid of a tax is one thing. To implement a tax under, like it or not, love it for some reasons, hate it for others. Under Tabor, the citizens have to vote to tax themselves. We can't just say, okay, we're going to change, and we're not going to collect grocery tax anymore because it's a bad tax, but we're going to switch it over to cigarette tax to gain those revenues. No. If we get rid of a tax, we lose that revenue until the citizens come together and vote in the majority to find a new revenue source. It doesn't just magically happen. They're not telling you that part, but Tabor demands. Tabor is the law of the land in Colorado, and it demands that the citizens tax themselves. We don't have the ability. The state can get creative and create fees. This council, as it sits on, and right now, is not in that fee game. We allow the citizens to make those decisions themselves. So I thank you for your time. I truly want to share that we are your representatives. We are your elected representatives. If you have questions, reach out. We're online. We will answer those questions. Our town staff will answer those questions. We work with this community to make sure that we have the best community. Thank you very much, and I am in support of this resolution.
All right. So I will try to provide a different spin. I think you guys nailed like everything. But for me, I'll just kind of go back to the resolution. It's about the facts. Again, I moved into this community in '83. So looking at the citizens' initiative to pass the tax, that was before my time. And again, it wasn't. I don't think it was of importance to my family that we had a grocery tax. Back then, we had Hills Country Market, which was our only grocery store, unless you wanted to go up to 225 in Parker and hit King Soopers or the Albertsons on County Line and Holly, I think, was sort of the deal. So I stumbled upon a note from that time, and I wish I still had it. I thought I did, but what transpired back then was they were looking, people were looking to the county to provide services to Parker. And the people here did not feel like the county was holding their end of the bargain. And again, we love the county, they're great partners now, but it's an evolution. And, if you have a need to do something different. And again, I've learned many lessons from this community, not just one person, but the whole community, as to how to approach things. That sort of rolling your sleeves up and figuring out how can we solve this problem led certain people to incorporating Parker and establishing a tax so they could solve their own issues. And I wasn't a part of that. But coming into it, going to Ponderosa, trying to figure out how we could make the students safe by expanding Parker Road. That wasn't anybody who rose up and said, "Look at me." It was a group of people who said, "What can we do to make it better?" And I thoroughly believe, looking back, sort of gives you the approach of what this community is, and does it match and align with your abilities or your desire to be here. And to me, being a suburban kid coming to a very rural park, it wasn't me to begin with, but I grew up with the community. So I think it's healthy to sort of revisit and sort of ask that question. Are things still relevant? And but again, you have to follow it through, and you have to figure out, if they're not, what are the impacts? And I think through talking to some staff members or former staff members throughout the last few months, we've done this. Our the councils, the previous councils have done this, have asked the question on grocery tax, have walked through that in study sessions, and I identified that it may not be the best. I know of at least two that I was told about. So again, I think that's healthy. And again, we had it in 2020, and we directed staff to provide us some information and say, hey, let's look out 10 years because we're close to full build out. We're about 85%. Most of Parker has been platted basically, which means that all they have to do is build it when the time is right. So, I mean, to me, as a Parker guy, that scares me. I'm trying to find money under the couch cushions, or to find partners to give us money so we can get our community in good order, so we don't have to worry about things and pay off debt too. I mean, we just paid off $10 million. We got 24 out there, and I want to get that taken care of before we get to 100% build out. But that 10-year plan suggests that as we transition, like Rhonda said, all those agreements with developers, the money that comes from that, the money that comes from creating new roads from Dr. Cog or from the county, our fine partners in Castle Rock, will cease, and it'll be a reconstruction. And we have the good fortune that we are receiving monies for road construction, but road reconstruction is a maintenance issue, which, again, like Rhonda articulated, those will ultimately come from the general fund, which is heavily funded by sales tax. I believe our 10-year plan indicates that we may have some issues. So again, not going down the road, not trying to judge. I believe this resolution provides the facts, and I believe that both sides should be willing to listen and to try to understand the other's thought, and to try to figure out how we can come together and be better for it. That's what I grew up with. I mean, I never tried to pick a fight. I looked at my community, and a person who had a passion was asking the questions. I have an issue. How do I solve it? And conversations occurred, and great things happened when that happened. So hopefully, we can sort of maybe de-escalate our passion a little bit and kind of just focus on this resolution for now and move forward. But I believe this is the facts, and the general fund should be the fund to focus on. And open budget is great to kind of see what's happening and all the cool stuff that we're building or things that are going through. But it's the resolution in the general fund. If you have questions on that, I think that is the place that we should start the conversation. So with that, I'm happy to entertain a motion.
I move to approve resolution number 24-028.
All right, I have a motion by Councilmember Wilkes, a second by Councilmember Hendricks. Rivero?
Aye.
Barrington? Yes. Hendricks?
Yes.
Wilkes?
Aye.
Hefta?
Yes.
And Dyack is yes. It is 6-0. Resolution passes unanimously. And with no further business before council, I will adjourn at 9:46. Thank you.